Chapter 1983. Han Xian was stunned by Han Fei's idea. Rob the Grand Purity Palace? Are you crazy? You want to fight against the Grand Purity Palace? Han Xian said, even if He Daoyuan and Xian Qingzi are not here, there are still more than a dozen pioneer sea cultivators in the Grand Purity Palace. Even if they are no match for you, it's not difficult for them to stop you. Besides, the Grand Purity Palace's city-protecting array is not easy to break. Hearing that, Han Fei asked, Uncle Xian, let me try to trap me, Grand Purity Palace. Han Fei and Han Xian came to the Grand Purity Palace almost as fast as they could. Since Bei Luochen and Xian Qingzi were both in the Golden Crow Heaven, Han Fei might as well stay there. This time, even if Han Fei didn't want to rob them, he had to annoy the Grand Purity Palace. Blocking my way to wealth is like killing my parents. Destroying my rice bowl will make enemies for 10 generations. Since you don't want to rob the Golden Crow Heaven, fine. I'm going to destroy the Grand Purity Palace. Han Fei didn't care what the humans in the Grand Purity Palace thought of him. Anyway, his name, Demon Han, had already spread far and wide. Why would he care about others' comments? This day was destined to be the darkest day in the history of the Grand Purity Palace. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the content of this book, causing some chapters to be missing. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please read the original content on QQ or Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the content of this book, causing some chapters to be missing. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please read the original content on QQ or Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the content of this book, causing some chapters to be missing. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please read the original content on QQ or Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the content of this book, causing some chapters to be missing. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please read the original content on QQ or Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize to all users for the inconvenience. For the original content, please read it on QQ or subscribe to Qidian. Chapter 1984. What happened to the heavenly fault? Ancient tree was too sudden. They were just here to investigate. When they realized that there was something wrong with the soul sea, they just wanted to explore it. They didn't expect that entering the soul sea was tantamount to courting death. However, they didn't know that someone could communicate with the inside of the soul sea from outside. This was simply unscientific. Except for one person, the other three didn't move at all. Han Fei killed 3 of them with one strike. Another one's first reaction was to run, but he was too close to Han Fei, less than a kilometer away. How could he run away from such a short distance? Han Fei was ruthless enough. Han Fei was also ruthless enough. He launched a Dao Convergence sword at close range, directly stabbing this person so hard that he didn't even have time to react. Rumble, 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 in the sky, a total of 4 cracks appeared one after another. The blood-colored rain was as thick as blood. The sky was full of blood, as if a river of blood was hanging upside down. At that moment, the entire Grand Purity Palace was dumbfounded. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. For the original content, please go to QQ to read or Qidian to read. Due to special reasons, this website will no longer carry the contents of this book from today onwards, resulting in some missing chapters. We apologize for the inconvenience caused to all users. Chapter 1985. The destruction caused by the Battle of the Heaven opening state could be imagined. Fortunately, the venerables near the Heavenly Fault ancient tree had already fled. Otherwise, they would all have died under this blow. The poor Heavenly Fault ancient tree, as a tree, could not move and was eventually cut down. From then on, there was no Heavenly Fault star fruit in the Tai Ching Palace. However, at the moment when the Heavenly Fault ancient tree was broken, Han Fei felt the smell of chaotic energy. Carrying his seriously injured body, he flashed, picked up the huge tree, and stuffed it directly into the Sea of Source. Everyone was still resisting the residual power of the gourd and the Xiantian sword, and could only watch Han Fei snatch away half of the Heavenly Fault ancient tree. However, what Han Fei did next shocked them. With a thought from Han Fei, the Dharma idol ran to pull the tree. The Dharma idol pulled the tree, and the infinity water cut the ground, madly cutting the roots of the Heavenly Fault ancient tree. Han Fei stood in the void, and the heaven-opening divine technique descended. His body was gradually recovering. In fact, Han Fei was also shocked. This blow directly shattered all his internal organs, turning them into a paste. At this moment, his internal organs were intertwining crazily, quickly recovering. Beside Han Fei was the unscathed gourd. The ancient Empyrean sword in the distance did not attack again immediately. It seemed that it was absorbing energy from all directions. Obviously, this sword was not omnipotent. Although it could burst out a heaven-opening state-killing move, it obviously needed to accumulate power after the sword. Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was already ready for the second blow. If this sword could come again, he would have to run away. Bam! In the ruins of a certain auction house in the Heavenly Fault ancient city, an array exploded, and the king who was tied up by the Qianji divine ghost disc broke out of the array. But in front of him was already a ruin. The man shouted, "It's Jiugong Tian's divination array." When the kings heard this, their hearts sank. Jiugong Tian, which had disappeared for 80,000 years, had reappeared. Just to rob the Heavenly Fault ancient city? A king gritted his teeth and shouted, "Han Fei, you even invited Jiugong Tian, just to rob the Heavenly Fault ancient city? In a mere city, how many resources can there be for you to rob?" Han Fei sneered, "Do you think this king is here to rob? This king is only here to disgust you." The kings saw that the ancient Empyrean sword was still accumulating power, but they couldn't attack. If Han Fei made too much noise, the island would be destroyed. Han Fei didn't seem to be in a hurry, but in fact, his heart was in turmoil. Although the apocalyptic divine technique had partially healed his injuries, the Empyrean ancient sword was indeed powerful. His body had been blown into a mess, so how could he fight back? Once he was exposed, would these kings let him go? However, on the surface, Han Fei was very tough, and others didn't notice anything wrong. As for Han Xian, if there was only one king chasing after him, he really wouldn't be able to stop him. In fact, in this short period of time, he had already plundered 6 CDB central areas. In any case, all the resources were sent to the Sun Moon shell. While robbing, Han Xian sighed, so robbing is actually so refreshing. It's too easy to obtain these resources. It seems that forming a pirate crew is not a bad choice. On the other side, the Fa Xiang forcibly pulled out the Heavenly Fault ancient tree, whose roots had almost been cut off. Han Fei didn't hesitate to take the Heavenly Fault ancient tree into his source world, which made everyone's face turn green. Han Fei said, "Hey! I can restore this tree. Don't you feel sorry for me? From now on, the Heavenly Fault ancient tree belongs to me." A king shouted angrily, "Demon Han, don't be arrogant. This is an inescapable net and the immortal lock formation. Even a cultivator at the heaven-opening realm can't break this space. Even if you slaughter the Grand Pure One and destroy the whole city, you can't break this space and escape. When I return, you will have no way to escape." Ignorant. Han Fei didn't want to argue with them. Since they thought he couldn't escape, he would let them think so. After all, they were too ignorant and didn't know that there was a way to break the formation. If they wanted to stop him from escaping, they needed to be more proficient in the great Tao of time than him, but it was almost impossible for this Grand Pure Immortal Lock formation to trap and kill him. Han Fei said to him via voice transmission, "Uncle Xian, just rob. These people don't dare to do anything. When the kings take action, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. There are advantages to being sanctimonious people, that is, they are too prideful." Han Xian said, "I've already found out. Anyway, just hold them for a while." Han Fei grinned. "You guys, hand over your Sun Moon shells. Otherwise, if I attack this city and accidentally hurt ordinary people, don't blame me for not reminding you." In fact, Han Fei didn't dare to do anything. Slaughtering ordinary people would only cause a psychological burden to him, which would cause his karma to grow and his inner demons to become demons. However, they all thought he was a demon. It seemed that being a demon also had its advantages. At least others would be very afraid of him. Of course, no one would agree to Han Fei's request. The kings were all waiting. The ancient Empyrean sword wouldn't be charged for a long time. They wanted to see how many times Han Fei could resist. However, it was not a good idea to keep these people waiting like this. If Han Fei didn't take action, these people would only feel that he was also a little afraid. Besides, these people were providing power for the ancient Empyrean sword. How could Han Fei let them do whatever they wanted? Therefore, Han Fei decided to go all out. "Your ancient Empyrean sword is powerful, but my green thunder wine gourd is weak." Han Fei's injuries got a little better, and he smashed the wine gourd at the ancient Empyrean sword with all his strength. In the eyes of others, Han Fei seemed to be confronting the ancient Empyrean sword. So when Han Fei smashed it with all his strength and took the initiative to bombard the ancient Empyrean sword, these kings suddenly stretched out their hands and an invisible big net seemed to envelop him. "Ha! You're quite good at seizing the opportunity." With a flash of golden light, Han Fei appeared next to a king with the gourd and dragged the invisible big net. The king who was approached by Han Fei was very fast. The moment he saw the golden light, he retreated quickly and blocked it with a huge shield in his hand. Thud kacha. The 7 kings hurriedly moved again, sealing the shock ripples. As for the king who was sent flying by Han Fei, his body bulged and turned into a fat man. Although Han Fei's terrifying blow had shattered his shield, his body had withstood it. When he looked again, he saw a jellyfish fused into his body, which turned out to be the power of his spiritual beast. At this time, Han Fei saw the ancient Empyrean sword vibrate again. Han Fei had a hunch that this thing was going to launch another attack soon. Why did it take such a short time to prepare? This was not appropriate. When the sword was launched just now, he used all his trump cards and almost lost his balance. If he were to launch another attack, he would really be seriously injured. Han Fei's figure flashed and with a swish, he appeared thousands of kilometers away. Han Xian had just stuffed a whole pagoda into his sea of source and looked at Han Fei in surprise. Han Xian's face changed slightly. "Can't you bear it? Yes, it's time to go. The power of that sword is very strong. With that, Han Fei grabbed Han Xian and directly fled into the void. Han Fei didn't try to walk directly through the river of time. He wanted to try if this so-called Grand Pure Immortal Lock formation was really as awesome as they said. However, with a flash of golden light, Han Fei felt that the void was locked and he slammed into the void barrier. Han Fei and Han Xian fell out of the void, but the 8 kings quickly sensed them, and one of them shouted, "Demon Han, you can't escape today." Swish, the ancient sword had cut through the sky again, and Han Fei cursed in his heart, "Uncle Xian, follow me. Don't resist." Swish, this time, the two of them directly crashed into a blue light. The river of time flowed in the blue halo, which looked extremely mysterious. Han Xian looked at the halo flowing around him and couldn't help but be surprised. River of time. Han Fei said, "Uncle Xian, don't worry. I will go against the current first and go back to the time when this Grand Pure Immortal Lock formation was not opened." Han Xian, although Han Xian was smart, he really didn't know how to touch time. It turned out that there could be such a way to escape. This time, the kings of the Grand Pure Palace waited for a long time, but they never found Han Fei again. Someone said, "What's going on? Did he really run away? How is that possible?" The Grand Pure Immortal Lock formation is a great array that can defend against people in the heaven-opening realm. No, that person in Jiogong Tian is extremely strong. He condensed thousands of arrays in an instant. His strength is equally terrifying. Is it because he is so skilled in arrays that he broke the Grand Pure Immortal Lock formation? If I'm not mistaken, that person should be Han Xian. He is indeed a genius and can't be underestimated. The group of people continued to wait, and many of the hundreds of millions of people in the Grand Pure Palace were still dumbfounded, not knowing what had happened. Outside the sea. Swish, a blue halo flashed, and Han Fei and Han Xian ran out of time. Han Xian asked, "Are we in normal time now?" Han Fei replied, "Of course, as long as we run out of the Grand Pure Palace's range and reverse the flow of time, we won't have much time left." "No problem." Han Xian said, "Let's go far away first." An hour later, when the two of them were sure that they had run far enough, Han Xian said, "Is the ancient Empyrean sword very strong?" Puff. Han Fei spat out a little blood, but then he raised his hands and cast the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique. Bathed in the healing divine light, Han Fei felt that his body's condition was greatly improved. Han Xian looked solemn. "It seems that the ancient Empyrean sword is stronger than I thought. It's a bit strange. I can block that attack. But this sword chi is endless, wantonly destroying my body. Otherwise, I would have robbed more than a tree just now." After casting 3 Heavenly Awakening Divine Techniques, Han Fei consumed at least 1,000 years of vitality to heal the injuries caused by the ancient Empyrean sword. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to have calmed down, Han Xian frowned. Han Xian frowned and said, "So it seems that we have suffered a loss this time." Han Fei shook his head. "No, I sacrificed 1,000 years of vitality to kill the 4 kings. It's not a loss at all." "Uncle Xian, how many resources did you rob?" Han Xian took out the sun and moon shells one after another, and the two of them counted the money on the sea. After counting for half an hour, the two looked at each other and grinned. Han Fei said, "Less than 2.5 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, more than 370,000 spiritual fruits, more than 1,800 ultra-quality divine weapons, and countless materials. There's even a pile of demonic energy crystals here. But there's not much earth vein essence." In the end, the two of them calculated that the total amount was about 3.7 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones. Although it was far from the tens of billions of resources they had originally planned, it was worth the risk this time. It was just like a pirate raid. Robbery itself was a very dangerous thing. Han Fei said, "Uncle Xian, what do you want?" Han Xian replied, 1 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones. The rest is yours. Then I'll give you 1.5 5 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, but the spiritual fruits, spiritual spring, demonic energy crystals, and earth vein essence will be mine, and all the other materials and ultra-quality divine weapons will be yours. Han Fei didn't care about the so-called materials. He didn't need these materials at all. What he needed were renewable resources. Han Xian couldn't help smiling. Okay, you do need these to expand the origin sea. When you expand the origin sea by 30,000 kilometers, the resources you need will be more and more. After 60,000 kilometers, from 60,000 kilometers to 70,000 kilometers. The consumption of resources will even catch up with all the previous consumption. You'd better take care of it. Han Fei smiled and said, I know. Chapter 1986. After splitting the loot with Han Xian didn't leave immediately. Han Xian said, Han Fei, I know you are determined to go to the Imperial Palace, but I have some experience to tell you. However, I have some experience to share with you. The first one is to never rush into the Arch Palace. Han Fei wondered, what do you mean? Han Xian explained, although I haven't gone to the Imperial Palace in recent years, there are people who go to the Nine Palace Heaven every time. After a long period of observation, I've come to a lot of conclusions. Han Xian answered them one by one. First of all, which is the simplest way to enter? There is only one entrance to the Imperial Palace. That is to say, when the Imperial Palace opens, there will be countless entrances. Those who hold the Imperial Palace key, which is an item with the aura of the Imperial Palace, think it's the same no matter which entrance they enter. But I feel that the more dangerous the entrance is, the safer it is after entering. Remember this. Han Fei looked solemn. The more dangerous the entrance was, the safer it was after entering. Han Xian's research was very persuasive because he was smarter than others. Han Xian continued, however, the choice of entrance can't only depend on the degree of danger around. If the color of the entrance is blue and black, that's normal. If it's red, according to the brightness of the red, it represents the strength of the danger. The most important thing was that there was a pure black entrance. Don't enter it. According to my research, anyone who enters from the pure black entrance will die and never come out. But the king can't enter from the blue and black entrance, otherwise it will cause a void turbulence, because the spatial entrance can't bear the power of the king, so in the void turbulence, you don't know where you will be sent. Han Fei nodded. I know. Han Xian continued, also, after entering the Imperial Palace, there are many abandoned places. Most of these places are on the periphery of the Imperial Palace, which have been explored in the past tens of thousands of years. Generally, there is no danger, but that's relative to the venerable realm. But if they explore a little deeper, they will always encounter danger, which depends on their luck and fate. For the king, they rarely appear in these places, because the king's aura determines where you appear. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, do you mean that the place where the king appears is generally more dangerous than the venerable realm? Han Xian nodded. That's for sure. That's the Imperial Palace. If a king were to enter a group of supremacies and start a massacre, who would be able to stop them? The Arch Palace is dangerous, but it is also an opportunity. In the past, the layout of the Arch Palace would not have allowed such a thing to happen. Han Fei nodded slightly. It doesn't matter. Which opportunity can be obtained for free? Ever since I was young, I have encountered many fortuitous encounters. Han Xian nodded. Also, as I told you before, there's no need to rush into the Arch Palace because there are many places that haven't been explored yet. Therefore, no one knew what was in that place. They walked slowly and sensed every danger. According to my judgment, those dangers didn't appear for no reason. Since they appeared, there must be a reason for them to appear. There were always benefits to walking a little slower. In any case, the Imperial Palace would remain open for 3 years. When the time is up, everyone will be sent out. Han Fei suddenly said, should I send them out together? Han Xian said, the places they send them out are also different, just like how they go in. Of course, there was still the possibility of being hunted. Therefore, when they left the imperial palace, it was often accompanied by battles. This is also one of the reasons why many people died in the Arch Palace. If we say that 70% of those who enter the Arch Palace die in there, then 20% of them die when they come out. Han Fei's heart did a flip. So, if a few heaven-opening realms hunt us at that time, won't we be at their mercy? Han Xian shook his head. No. Of course not. Within 3 million kilometers of the Arch Palace, that is the place where the entrance is contested. Heaven-opening realms dare not go there. If a heaven-opening realm wants to go there, there must be a great disaster to stop them. So look at the heaven-opening realm in the chaotic Azure Sea, none of them are going to the Arch Palace. Great disaster to stop them. Han Xian nodded. This is also what I worry about. There seems to be a great disaster in the Arch Palace. So I think the probability of exploring the entire Arch Palace is extremely low, or even almost non-existent. Han Fei nodded and said, I see. As long as the heaven-opening realm can't invade, ordinary hunting is normal. Han Xian nodded. Good. He would go as far as he could. If you can't walk anymore, stop in a relatively safe place and wait for 3 years if you want to save your life. I'm afraid that the environment you are in doesn't allow you to do this. Han Fei smiled. Can't I enter the Origin Sea? Han Xian shook his head. No. You may be able to use the power of the Origin Sea, but if you want to go in, perhaps even your Origin Sea will be targeted. Han Fei took a deep breath. It does sound dangerous. Han Xian nodded. That's all I know. Slow is enough to increase your survival rate by 30%. Han Fei clasped his fists. Thank you, Uncle Xian. Han Xian waved his hand. Forget it. By the way, do you want your incarnation to go back with me? Yin has urged me many times. Han Fei thought for a while and nodded slightly. Let's go back. The incarnation returning to the Nine Palace Heaven was naturally a way for Han Xian and Yin to protect themselves. Han Fei was not stupid. The Arch Palace was a dangerous place, and he had to be prepared. However, he believed that if he couldn't even explore the Arch Palace, how could he open the sky and become an emperor in the future? Let alone become a god. When Xian Qingzi, Bei Luochen, and Huabuli arrived, they found that 8 important trade centers in the Heavenly Fault Ancient City had been destroyed. The Heavenly Fault Ancient Tree had disappeared into thin air. Although the Tai Ching Immortal Lock Array was still open, the enemy was nowhere to be seen. Bei Luochen looked at the Empyrean sword floating in the air and asked, Who is it? Needless to say, everyone had gathered around, and the king said, Emperor Xian, this attack was launched by Han Fei, a top king from the Nine Palace Heaven. Han Fei attacked the Soul Sea while Yang Rui and the others were in the Soul Sea. Humph. Xian Qingzi was full of killing intent. He clenched his fists, wishing he could find Han Fei and kill him right now. Bei Luochen said in surprise, You mean the Nine Palace Heaven has appeared? The king nodded. Yes, that man looks very much like Han Xian. Han Xian. Xian Qingzi and Bei Luochen's hearts sank at the same time. This name, just like Han Guanshu, could not be underestimated. Han Guanshu was a cunning man who took every conceivable possibility into account. It was he who saved the Yin-Yang heaven back then. Otherwise, how could there be Han Fei today? Han Xian was also a genius back then. This guy created the War God armor, a type of battle armor with extremely high spirituality. With this skill, he managed to escape with the Nine Palace Heaven. No one expected that Han Xian would choose to appear at this moment just to grab some resources. Xian Qingzi said, They just don't dare to break into the Tai Ching Heavenly Palace. Otherwise, even if Han Xian is here, they won't have a chance to escape. Bei Luochen asked, The Tai Ching Immortal Lock Array couldn't lock them? The king said, Han Fei must have left through the River of Time. This guy controls the Great Tao of Time, and he left a halo of time before he left. Xian Qingzi and Bei Luochen looked at each other. At this moment, Han Fei had already become a powerhouse. They couldn't catch him even if they wanted to. They couldn't kill him even if they wanted to. Although Han Fei was not strong enough, if he successfully came out of the imperial palace, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bei Luochen said, "It seems that everyone has to go all out on this trip to the imperial palace. We can't let this kid continue to grow." Xian Qingzi said, "I'm afraid it's unrealistic to besiege the Sword God Palace." When Xian Qingzi learned about the four kings, the Grand Pure Lord, He Daoyuan, also knew about it. At this moment, He Daoyuan's face was also dark. It was not easy to become a king. Although there were many kings in the Grand Pure Palace, they couldn't afford to lose 4 people in a row. Han Fei must have launched a sudden attack when Xian Qingzi was not at home. Now, Xian Qingzi would definitely return. Bei Luochen was not stupid. Han Fei even dared to attack the Grand Pure Palace, so why wouldn't he dare to attack the Wuji Heaven? Therefore, Bei Luochen would probably stay. Then, would Hu Biuli of the Golden Crow Heaven still dare to stay in the Divine Palace? If he dared to stay, he wouldn't be far from death. In the distance, the Sword God and He Daoyuan confronted each other. He seemed to have noticed He Daoyuan's strangeness. The Sword God said bluntly, "He Daoyuan, it's not very useful to stop the 4 palaces. If you dare to fight me, you can take down the 4 palaces by sacrificing a heaven-opening realm cultivator. The question is, do you dare?" He Daoyuan knew that this operation had failed. If he didn't go back to support the overall situation, if Han Fei took advantage of the opening of the Imperial Palace and made trouble again, the Grand Pure Palace might be able to bear it, but the other families wouldn't be able to bear it. He Daoyuan snorted coldly. Retreat. When He Daoyuan chose to retreat, Han Fei had already sneaked to the Golden Crow Heaven. He didn't believe that Xian Qingzi could still stay here after such a big thing happened. However, when the nautical panorama turned, Han Fei found that Hu Biuli was also gone. Son of a bitch, he ran quite fast. Forget it, he ran away. Chapter 1987. Since Hu Biuli had run away, Han Fei had no interest in going to the Golden Crow Heaven. But Han Fei didn't return to the Yinyang Heaven immediately. He found a random place, took out his fishing hook, and prepared to continue studying time fishing. Before going to the Imperial Palace, he couldn't learn this new technique for nothing. He had to study its usage. The previous 2 experiments proved that the things caught by time fishing couldn't be stored for a long time. Han Fei pondered. If he could fish for pills, could he fish for other things? The first thing that came to Han Xian's mind was Han Xian's Qianji Godly Ghost Plate. He didn't know if he could catch that thing. If he could catch it, why would he make the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate? Han Fei cast his fishing hook and started fishing at the same time point on the battlefield of the Grand Purity Palace. This time, he didn't catch anything, but Han Fei felt resistance. It might be because the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate was more advanced, so it was not easy to catch it. But Han Fei didn't give up. Once, twice, thrice. After the 8th time in a row, he finally caught the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate. At the moment when the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate was caught, Han Fei felt that he could control the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate without even recognizing it as its owner. It felt as if his consciousness was connected with the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate. As long as he thought of something, arrays would appear in the air. Phew! As soon as I thought of it, arrays were created. What a weird power. And Han Fei sensed that something was locked in the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate, which looked like a set of armor. He couldn't help but think of the armor that Han Xian wore when he sparred with him, which could offset half of the force. However, to release this armor, he needed to unlock the thousands of chains of arrays in the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate with a single thought. But Han Fei and the Qianji Godly Ghost Plate were connected telepathically, so a layer of weird black armor quickly appeared on his body. Wow! It feels so powerful. This armor seems to be alive. Yes, Han Fei felt that this armor seemed to be spiritual. Was it soul attached? Han Fei had a feeling that if he was in a battle, even if he didn't move, he could even let this armor move his body. Unfortunately, there was no one to spar with him. Han Fei immediately thought of the Empyrean ancient sword he had just fought. That thing was really strong. He wondered if he could catch it. That thing also had its own consciousness and was also very strong. If that thing was fished over and its power was reduced by half, it might not be able to hurt him. So, Han Fei fished again. However, this time, Han Fei fished 12 times in a row before he pulled out the ancient Empyrean sword from time. Thinking about it, although he had fought with the ancient suspending sky sword a moment ago, that thing didn't look easy to catch. Sure enough, if he fished at this speed, it would be impossible for him to catch it. By the time he really wanted to use something, it would be too late for him to catch it. The moment the Empyrean ancient sword appeared, Han Fei immediately shouted, "Hey! Evil sword, let's fight one-on-one if you have the guts." However, Han Fei was surprised to find that the Empyrean ancient sword didn't intend to attack him at all. Instead, the sword fell beside him and trembled around him. What's going on? Can I use it? Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. Can the thing he fished up from time be controlled by me? Han Fei grabbed the Empyrean ancient sword with one hand, and the sword didn't resist and was easily caught by him. Fuck. So everything I fished up belongs to me? Han Fei was a little confused himself, thinking that this time fishing was too powerful. If its function was so powerful, then all the good things in the world could be used by him as long as he saw them. Han Fei grabbed the Empyrean ancient sword and slashed at it, only to find that the spiritual energy and energy in his body were sucked dry in an instant, and it was obviously not enough. Han Fei hurriedly mobilized the power of the Origin Sea. Chilla. A sky-splitting sword radiance traversed 10,000 li across the vast ocean, directly opening up a trench that was several dozen li deep at the bottom of the ocean. After this slash, Han Fei immediately saw that the Empyrean ancient sword was unstable as if it was about to collapse and melt at any time. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. Is this thing so strong? Finally, after 10 minutes, the Empyrean ancient sword disappeared out of thin air as if it didn't exist at all. About 10 minutes after the Empyrean ancient sword disappeared, the Qianji divine ghost plate also disappeared. This time, Han Fei came to the conclusion that anything he could fish up, including weapons and resources, could be used by him. But Han Fei immediately had a new idea. What if he was fishing someone? Han Fei wanted to try fishing Huobuli, but on second thought, what if Huobuli noticed it? So, Han Fei decided to see how far he could go. So, Han Fei wanted to try fishing Old Han. Fishing Old Han meant that he had to cross the river of time for decades and return to the time node when he last met Old Han. Swish, one hook failed. 2 hooks failed. Finally, on the 5th time, Han Fei pulled out a familiar figure from time. Who else could it be but Old Han? Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. Although he crossed the river of time a bit far, Old Han was only in the half-king realm at that time, so it was easier for him to fish. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Old Han, only to find that Old Han looked dull as if he didn't know him at all, like a wooden man. Han Fei asked tentatively, "Old Han, can you hear me?" Han Fei shouted for a long time but found no response from Old Han. Then, Han Fei ordered, "Old Han, make me a cup of tea." Then, Han Fei waved his hand, and a table and a tea set appeared on the sea. Old Han was making tea in a daze. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. It seems that there is a limit to what I can fish up. I guess Old Han will be gone after a while at most. Although this time fishing is a divine technique, it has its drawbacks, that is, I may not be able to catch what I want in time, and the biggest drawback is the time limit. Slurp. Han Fei drank a cup of tea and pondered for a long time, preparing to explore other uses of time fishing. But suddenly, Old Han suddenly said, "Don't enter time randomly." Han Fei suddenly looked at Old Han, only to see that there was a slight struggle on Old Han's face, and then he became dull again. Old Han, Old Han. Han Fei gestured in front of Han Guanshu for a long time, but the latter didn't respond at all. At this time, the old turtle said, "Did you just hook people from time?" "Why?" Han Fei said, "I guess he should be a projection in history, so he can only exist in a corner of time and must dissipate." Old turtle said, "Is that so? Then can you fish up my Tao?" "Wow!" Han Fei's eyelids twitched and he immediately said, "Old Yuan, you are really a fucking genius." Han Fei thought to himself that he had never fished with a Taoist Tao before, but was old Han warning him just now? Han Fei didn't rush to use time fishing again. He couldn't help but say, "Wait. Even if I fish up your Tao, won't it disappear?" Old Yuan asked, "Will Tao disappear?" Han Fei asked, "Won't yours disappear?" Old Yuan said, "Mine was swallowed by you." Han Fei was also suspicious. If it was something like Tao, it was hard to say. He said, "Old Yuan, can't your Tao be reborn after it collapses? You're not dead anyway." Old Turtle said, "I also find it strange. By logic, I should be dead when my Tao is broken, but I'm not dead. But I didn't die. This made me wonder if there were still remnants of my great Tao. Why don't you try? Anyway, you'll know if it works or not." At this time, Han Fei saw that old Han's figure became blurry, and he was still in a dull state until he disappeared. Han Fei said, "I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, there's nothing I can do." Han Fei thought to himself, fishing for other people's Tao is really exciting. As he threw out the hook, he tried to cross the river of time and return to the beginning. Han Fei didn't know how to fish for Tao, but he just hooked it in his mind. What if he got it back? As a result, Han Fei really hooked something heavy. Han Fei's eyes lit up. It's possible. However, as soon as he said that, a power of time strangled him in the opposite direction. Han Fei was horrified and subconsciously loosened his hand, only to see that his fishing rod instantly collapsed. Shoot! With a golden flash, Han Fei retreated 10,000 kilometers. A blue halo twisted where he was, and within 1,000 kilometers, many creatures instantly decayed and withered. Han Fei was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. "Old Yuan, are you fucking kidding me? If I had reacted a little slower, I would have been swallowed by that time. Son of a bitch, that's horrible." Han Fei was horrified. Just a moment ago, old Han warned him not to enter time, and the next moment, it came true. Thanks to his quick reaction, he almost got caught in the chaos of time just now. Old Turtle was also speechless. I didn't expect this to happen either. Han Fei said, "Forget it. Let's go. Anyway, you are just a heaven-opening realm cultivator. Now we're not so close. I'll keep your opinion to myself in the future, Old Turtle." Chapter 1988. When Han Fei returned to the Yin-Yang heaven, everyone was ready to go. In the Thug Academy, a group of people were eating around a big round table. Wang Dashui said, "Little junior brother, did you forget about us? Although we're not half a king yet, we're not weak either. Maybe we can gain something from this trip to the palace." As soon as he said this, Old Bai scolded him, "Do you think you're thicker than a door just because you're carrying it? Don't you know why Han Fei needs to be a half-king to enter the palace? You're not even a half-king. You'll die if you go there." Wang Dashui muttered, "Then the void vine," Old Jiang scoffed. "Only the void vine is special. It runs fast, but can you run fast? It won't die even if it's cut off. Come on, I'll cut it off for you." On the other side, Yi Xian tugged at Zhang Xuanyu. "Darling, take me with you. I think I'm super powerful." Zhang Xuanyu said angrily, "You're not powerful at all. Don't you know that there's only a slim chance of survival? A quasi-king would have a slim chance of survival if he went. You've just entered the high-rank Exalt realm. Going there is no different from giving your life away." Suddenly, Han Fei appeared. "Hey! Are you eating? Move your seat." Xia Shaochan couldn't help asking, "Where have you been?" Everyone looked at Han Fei. They hadn't seen him in the past few days and didn't know where he went. Now Han Fei was strong and elusive. As long as he was not there, everyone thought he was making trouble. Han Fei said, "Nothing. I went to the dragon subduing heaven and took a stroll in the Grand Purity Palace." Everyone, Zhang Xuanyu pursed his lips. "See?" Lu Renkuang said, "I bet that he must have robbed someone behind our backs and made a fortune." Han Fei couldn't help glancing at Lu Renkuang. What a sharp eye. Who would have thought that he would be able to guess it right away? Seeing Han Fei's reaction, everyone knew that Lu Renkuang was right. Old Jiang snorted. "You're just testing the waters crazily. Don't go too deep." Luo Xiaobai asked, "When are we leaving?" "How about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow?" Everyone at the table was surprised. Old Bai said, "Isn't it still 3 months?" Near the Imperial Palace, the place where the heaven-opening state can't reach is only 3 million kilometers. "So, tomorrow, I will go to our allies and ask for a map. Let's go first. Let's enter this 3 million kilometer region first." Luo Xiaobai asked, "Why can't the heaven-opening realm touch the 3 million kilometers? It's said that a great horror will take action." "As for what great horror, I don't know." Luo Xiaobai asked, "Is this 3 million square kilometers a safe zone?" Han Fei nodded. "Not exactly. There are dangers in the 3 million kilometer radius. However, you must first enter my origin sea. When the time comes, I will let you out when the Emperor Palace opens." Everyone's expressions darkened. Having a heaven-opening expert as an enemy was truly sullen. He had to be careful even when exploring a mystic realm. If the other party were to seize the opportunity, the consequences would be unimaginable. The next day. Snow God Palace. Han Fei and the Snow Girl met again. The Snow Girl said, "This time, I'm going too." Han Fei said in surprise, "You're going too?" The Snow Girl said, "As I said before, some people who became kings have almost reached the end of their lifespans. If we don't go this time, it will be more difficult to go later." Han Fei frowned. "Why?" The Snow Girl said, "This time, you caused a bloody storm in the ocean sea. The savage abyss didn't stop you, and now the Grand Purity Palace is said to have retreated. If you rise, who can be at ease? Besides, many people are indeed reaching the end of their lifespans, so they have to go. This time, there may be a situation where many kings explore the Imperial Palace together. The more people, the greater the power. Even if you don't unite, you are not allies. But their goal of exploring the Imperial Palace is the same." Han Fei nodded. "Got it. They all chose this time to concentrate their firepower and want to have a big exploration. The farther you can go, the more opportunities you can get. Life and death are up to fate, right?" The Snow Girl nodded. "Yes." Han Fei grinned. "So, Huang Jia will definitely go too." The Snow Girl glanced at Han Fei in surprise. "Is the 10,000 poison heaven your ally?" The Snow Girl couldn't help but remember that when they went to the King Grave, Han Fei had boarded Huang Jia's ship. Thinking about it, there might have been signs at that time, but she didn't know how Han Fei and Huang Jia trusted each other at that time. Han Fei said, "I'm going first. Once we enter the Imperial Palace, if we can meet, we can help each other. If not, take care of yourselves." The Snow Girl tilted her head and glanced at Han Fei. She was a little surprised. How could someone rise to this level in such a short time? It was said that Han Fei's strength had entered the top 10 of the sea expansion realm in the Ocean Sea, and according to the Martial Emperor City, he was currently ranked 5th. It didn't mean that Han Fei could only be ranked 5th, but he was ranked 5th among the top 5. It meant that even the weakest person could be ranked 5th. But this 5th place was already beyond the reach of countless pioneer sea realm cultivators. If it weren't for the heaven-opening realm, it could be said that Han Fei had already reached the top. However, Han Fei didn't feel this way. He felt that there were still many people who surpassed him. Let alone the heaven-opening realm. Xia Xiaochan's mother Xia Hongzhu, the god of war queen, had not recovered her strength yet, but she was already at the heaven-opening realm. If her strength recovered, Han Fei suspected that she might be able to touch the threshold of emperor. What made Han Fei most depressed was the existence of the imperial palace. The imperial palace had suppressed the chaotic ocean sea for 100,000 years. It was conceivable how terrifying an emperor was. It was also conceivable that the ceiling of strength in this world was simply unattainable. Even an emperor could suppress the chaotic ocean sea. What about the existences at the level of gods? Han Fei thought that the imperial palace would be in the inner sea, but it was not. If the chaotic ocean sea was divided into inner and outer sea, then the imperial palace was precisely in the outer sea, but this outer direction was in the east. The chaotic ocean sea was in the east from the direction of the imperial palace. However, once you left the vicinity of the imperial palace, you wouldn't even be able to distinguish north from south. You could only go around in circles and then go back, or you would be silent in the ocean. So far, except for the first batch of human kings who came east and Xia Hongzhu, no one had left the chaotic ocean sea. After Xia Hongzhu came back, it had been 100,000 years. Whether she could find the way out was still a mystery. Because Xia Hongzhu and the others who came east in the first batch had never seen the imperial palace. The imperial palace appeared after them. Therefore, Han Fei even suspected that an emperor-level master had deliberately sealed this space. Anyway, according to the route map given by the Snow Girl, Han Fei had been flying for a whole day. Although there were breaks in between, the distance was still very far. During this period, Han Fei passed by 13 landmarks marked on the route map. Only then did Han Fei realize that he had traveled about 2/3 of the way. Another half a day later, Han Fei came to a warm current sea area rich in resources and suitable for the survival of coral reefs and other creatures. According to the Snow Girl, when you first arrived here, you would find that this place was colorful, but the deeper you went, the more you would find that the main color was red. There were many towering stone pillars here, and the outer stone pillars were covered with colorful animals and plants. The deeper you went, the main color of these stone pillars would also turn red. The Snow Girl warned that after traveling 100,000 kilometers from here, you would officially enter the territory of the Imperial Palace. As for where the Imperial Palace was, Han Fei couldn't sense it with his perception. He could only enter the Imperial Palace through the portal that appeared in this sea area when the Imperial Palace opened. However, this sea area was full of hidden dangers, and the danger level was very high. The Snow Girl said that before entering the Imperial Palace, just in this sea area alone, 10% to 30% of the explorers might die. Only when all the explorers were at the Half-King realm would the probability of dying here be reduced to about 10%. Han Fei scanned with his perception and immediately found the problem. When his perception probed forward for about 110,000 kilometers, it disappeared as if it was absorbed by some kind of power. He couldn't see anything, and he could only see with his naked eyes. Oh. Interesting. Absorbing perception makes everyone blind. In such a territory of 3 million kilometers, it's hard to say whether I can meet people or not, but I will definitely encounter other forms of danger. Han Fei thought for a while. Anyway, he had to go in anyway, so it didn't make any difference whether he went in now or later. Han Fei leaped with a golden light and appeared directly in this sea area. Han Fei didn't know where he had flashed to, but at this moment, in the surrounding seawater, there was a trace of red mist, as if the seawater had become turbid. This red turbidity could reduce normal vision by half. The place where Han Fei was happened to be next to a colorful stone pillar. Although his perception didn't work, Han Fei still tried to perceive it. However, as soon as his perception spread out, it touched the red mist, which directly caused his perception to be swallowed. He couldn't even perceive within 1 meter. Hula, just as Han Fei chuckled, he saw the void next to him break into a pair of scissors and suddenly clamp over. Chapter 1989. Colorful and poisonous, it turned out to be a fat worm with a body like a worm and a tail like a pair of scissors. Its body was covered with marine plants, shells, and seaweed. It stuck to the stone pillar, and its disguise was flawless. This creature's speed was extremely fast, but Han Fei was still a pioneer sea realm expert. The moment its killing intent burst out, Han Fei's eyes had already fallen on it. Han Fei clasped his hands and grabbed the two scissors that seemed to be a combination of stone and grass. Information popped up in his eyes. Name: a scarlet shadow silhouette worm. Introduction: it lives in a place full of blood and grows by absorbing the pressure in the blood of this realm. Scarlet shadow silhouette worms can completely blend into the natural environment. In a non-combat state, they can be plants, insects, or stones. This worm is highly poisonous. Once it enters the blood, it can corrode the bloodline. Level 88 Equality, Exotic Realm, Advanced Venerable. It contains chaotic energy greater than 59 wisps. Combat skills: Blood Light Scissors, Shadowless Scissors, Blood Condensation Poisonous Sting. Collectible: Blood Condensation Poisonous Sting, Scarlet Tail Scissors. Remarks: this worm is highly poisonous. Han Fei saw that there were some dark green marks on his hands. Before the worm reacted, he tore the worm in half with both hands. The void lines were then fastened, and the demon purification pot quickly extracted the chaotic energy in the worm's body. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. It was true that dangerous places also had great rewards. Although this worm hadn't reached the peak of the Venerable Sea, it still had dozens of wisps of chaotic energy. At this speed, it would be easy for him to get tens of thousands of wisps of chaotic energy after several months of hunting. Han Fei didn't stay here but continued to swim deeper. The scenery along the way made Han Fei feel more and more strange. Because the colors here were too beautiful and pure. For example, Han Fei saw a large area of black and yellow anemones. The color was so pure that it was almost glowing, like polished gold. There were also red poisonous umbrellas, blue and white spiders, and corals of various colors. Only the soil and the rocks were dark red. Han Fei felt as if he had entered an ocean of paintings, surrounded by all kinds of colors. His eyes couldn't stand it. Han Fei thought he would encounter a lot of danger, but as he moved forward, he found that no creatures attacked him. Except for the one just now, no other creatures seemed to attack Han Fei. Out of curiosity, Han Fei fused with Little Black and Little White and soon discovered something. He found that in places where he couldn't see just now, a sea anemone immediately turned into a normal sea anemone after seeing him, a colorful crab shrank itself into a stone, and a squid shrank its nest. It seemed that these creatures had long discovered Han Fei. I can't even detect them, so how did they detect me? Han Fei deliberately flew past these creatures, but they didn't attack him. Instead, he found that the strength of these creatures wasn't very high, and he didn't even need to kill them. After searching for a long time, Han Fei had gone at least 1,000,000 kilometers deep. When there were more and more turbid red particles in the seawater, he finally found a bloody coral spider that was half a king under the guidance of the navigator. This spider's camouflage was excellent. Even under the cover of the turbid red mist, it could even conceal its spiritual energy and energy state. If Han Fei hadn't seen its information, he would have missed it. When Han Fei approached the spider, he made his move. He wasn't as cautious as the other creatures. Although the spider didn't move, a large web fell silently. The moment the big net fell, Han Fei felt a sharp claw poking out of the void and stabbing straight at the back of his head. It was so fast that it was impossible to defend against it. Ha! Han Fei waved his hand backhandedly, and a knife light burst out. The next moment, the net and the claw were broken. From beginning to end, the spider didn't move at all. Han Fei didn't attack immediately. He wanted to see if the spider would attack again. As he expected, the spider didn't attack again. Instead, it remained motionless and tried to hide itself. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder. This spider's combat power was not low, and its attack methods were not bad either. If it were an ordinary half-king, it might not be able to completely avoid it. Besides, even if it escaped this sneak attack, so what? The spider itself hadn't attacked yet. It could be seen that the half-king creatures here had good hunting methods, which was why the number of chaotic ocean sea explorers who came to the imperial palace was gradually reduced to the level of half-king. However, this spider only attacked once and didn't attack again, because it found that Han Fei was very strong. But this time, Han Fei keenly noticed that when he smashed the claw sting, an extremely weak part of the turbid red mist in the water passed through his body after collapsing. No wonder. Han Fei suddenly understood. No wonder no creatures attacked him along the way. It turned out that when he destroyed the red mist, this strange red mist seemed to reflect his strength on his body. Han Fei checked again but didn't find this reflection. Yes, even with the strength of a king, he didn't find anything wrong with this red mist, let alone his body. It seemed that only the creatures here could feel it, but he couldn't. Therefore, when Han Fei approached other creatures, these creatures could know how strong Han Fei was. So they didn't attack him at all. Han Fei was speechless. So, in this so-called dangerous area, a king was actually in a safe area? In this case, the embroidery needle appeared in Han Fei's hand, and he stabbed it out and directly nailed the bloody coral spider to death. Using the void lines, Han Fei pressed his hand on the body of the spider that was shaped like a stone and directly swallowed the chaotic energy. Han Fei grinned. In this case, I won't hold back. Little White, time to hunt. Han Fei said in high spirits, Little White, find me the half-king creatures here. However, Little White froze for a while and then looked at Han Fei. Dad, I can't find them. Huh? Han Fei, who was still in high spirits just now, was dumbfounded when he heard Little White's words. He said in surprise, Why can't you find them? How can they be hidden from you? Little White swam around Han Fei a few times. Dad, I can't feel anything. I can't feel spiritual energy or energy. I can't even see 100 meters away. Han Fei's heart sank. It seemed that he was still too naive. It made sense. If the half-king creatures here were so easy to hunt, this place would have become a resource collection place for the kings in the chaotic vast ocean. How could there be half-king creatures here? So, if he wanted to hunt, he could only use the navigator. According to the speed of hunting 3 times a day, he could only hunt 90 times a month. Even if the average chaotic chi contained in a half-monarch realm being was around 150 strands, that was equivalent to 13,500 strands of chaotic chi. Including the chaotic chi that he had accumulated, he had over 45,000 strands. Han Fei frowned. It was already quite a lot. At least, if he came out of the imperial palace in the future, he could hunt here and stay for a year and a half. As long as there were enough half-king creatures here, it would not be difficult for him to accumulate chaotic energy. With this in mind, Han Fei immediately took out the navigator. The hunting officially began. 3 months later. Han Fei estimated that according to the current time, there should be less than 2 days before the imperial palace opened. In the past 3 months, Han Fei had hunted a total of 102 half-king creatures, some of which he found himself and killed. This was not bullying the weak, but the law of the jungle, which was the law of survival in nature. During this period, Han Fei had harvested a total of 15,096 points of chaotic energy, and his total chaotic energy had reached 46,015 points. Han Fei was not bragging, but the amount of chaotic energy he had now was probably the most in the entire chaotic vast ocean. He had asked the old turtle how much chaotic energy a sea pioneer should store. However, this time the old turtle didn't have an accurate explanation. He could only tell him what happened to him at that time. He said that when he transcended the tribulation and became a king, the amount of chaotic energy he had just exceeded 50,000 strands. This number really shocked Han Fei, because among the kings that Han Fei had killed so far, none had so much chaotic energy. However, the old turtle also explained, but I found an ancient battlefield and slept for tens of thousands of years. On that battlefield, some emperor-level powerhouses died, and I absorbed a lot of chaotic energy. Han Fei thought to himself that this was just an exception. He had so much chaotic energy because he was lucky. He hadn't even surpassed the old turtle yet, so he didn't think that his chaotic energy was invincible. Suddenly, just as Han Fei began to prepare for today's hunting, the red mist in this sea seemed to begin to boil. Immediately afterward, Han Fei saw that all the creatures he could see no longer hide themselves. For example, a beginner venerable sea anemone not far away from Han Fei suddenly bloomed, and each of its tentacles was a sharp blade that could extend up to 100 meters. Han Fei passed by other places and found that wherever he passed, all the creatures no longer hid themselves and appeared one after another. However, Han Fei felt that they seemed to have entered a state of berserk. Is this the so-called danger at the entrance? Chapter 1990. When there was an unusual movement here, Han Fei knew that the imperial palace was about to open. If he guessed right, the kings had already arrived at the periphery of this place. Because of the red mist, even a heaven-opening state powerhouse couldn't perceive the situation in the sea of red mist from the periphery. Therefore, people like Bei Luochen were destined to be unable to find him. Even if they had ambushes in the outside world, as long as he broke into the sea of red mist, they couldn't do anything. Perhaps this was a kind of protection of the imperial palace for those who came to explore. After reaching the heaven-opening state, perhaps according to the rules of the imperial palace, there was no need to explore the imperial palace at all. With a thought from Han Fei, the mountains and rivers here were reflected, and Xia Shaochan and the others all appeared near him. Even the hexagon starfish was forcibly summoned by Han Fei at this moment. Han Fei threw the hexagon starfish to Xia Shaochan. With the hexagon starfish's current ability, it could protect Xia Shaochan, but it was almost impossible for it to protect itself. As soon as they appeared, the first thing they did was to observe the surrounding environment. Immediately, someone said, "Perception is useless. It can't even penetrate half a meter outside the body." Zi Luo added, "These sea demon plants are a bit weird. They are shaking so violently and crazily as if they are fighting with their blood." Zhang Xuanyu added, "I don't know why, but I feel a long-lost sense of adventure." At this moment, everyone had realized where they were. This must be where the imperial palace was located. Han Fei said, "Everyone, listen up. In 2 days at most, maybe less than that, the imperial palace will open. So, from this moment on, your life and death are no longer in my hands. Now I will give you some knowledge about the imperial palace, which is enough to increase your survival rate by 30%. Hearing that it could increase their survival rate, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. Although they had made countless preparations for this trip to the imperial palace, this was, after all, a perilous situation. However, this was, after all, a 90% chance of survival. The probability of him dying was as high as 90%. Who wouldn't panic? After a while, when Han Fei told them what Han Xian told him, everyone was a little surprised. The way to increase their survival rate was so simple. Han Fei said, "Don't think it's simple. Do you know how many half-king realms will enter the imperial palace this time? I'm afraid the number will be more than 5,000. Listen up, this is a quasi-king realm expert and not an exalt realm expert. Other than the humans, there are also the sea demons, the seabed humans, the merfolk royalty, the martial emperor's city, the 10 great pirate crews, and even giant beasts that have transformed into humans. There are countless rogue cultivators in this chaotic azure sea. Whether or not you can walk out alive depends on yourselves." Hiss, as the only peak venerable present, the Void Vine asked nervously, "Lord Human King, is my strength too weak?" Han Fei said grumpily, "Why don't you try to run out now? If I'm not mistaken, there are a few heaven-opening realms 1,000,000 kilometers away. Maybe they will be kind enough to let you pass." The Void Vine, then I'll keep it. Luo Xiaobai asked, "What's wrong with where we are right now?" Han Fei said, "It should be a sign of the opening of the palace. It's because your perception can't detect them, and the creatures here are too good at disguising themselves. Even I might not be able to detect them at close range. So, when you are looking for the entrance, you will be attacked by a large number of creatures. In theory, 10% of you will die here." Han Fei changed his tone and looked at everyone. However, you are best at melee battles. Just be careful not to be attacked and stay vigilant at all times. The probability of survival is very high, as long as you choose a good entrance. This time, I won't help you find the way one by one. You have to find it yourself. In this red mist sea, whether you live or die is up to you. Luo Xiaobai asked, are we going now? Han Fei nodded. It doesn't matter. It's dangerous, but it's also an opportunity. If you can't even find the entrance, even if you enter the palace, you will be courting death. Everyone deeply agreed. If they couldn't even find the door and died outside, what was the point of talking about exploring the Arch Palace? What was the point of talking about opportunities? Han Fei said bluntly, from now on, you can leave. As long as you don't go out of the range of this red mist sea, unless you encounter a sea-opening realm powerhouse, the most powerful creature here is on the same level as you. Finally, I hope that you can come back alive. The Demon Beast Alliance, Jiao Mengyue, Tianjiu, White Sable, and Enigmatic Shadow all shouted. Jiao Mengyue said, thank you, Human King, for taking care of us for decades. We are very grateful. 3 years later, if we can return, we will be the strongest allies of the Yin-Yang Heaven. The Insect King turned into a human bald head and cupped his hands to Han Fei. Thank you so much. Zi Luo said, thank you, Human King. If I become a king this time, the Forest of Terror will be under the command of the Yin-Yang Heaven. Song Kaiyuan and the others also cupped their hands. Thank you, Human King. We will take our leave. Han Fei smiled and said, life and death are predestined. Take care. Swish, 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 everyone bid farewell to Han Fei one by one. Although they knew that it was very likely that they would never return, everyone was like this on the path of cultivation. They only hoped that when they returned, they could stand at the peak of this world. Wasn't Han Fei the same as well? When everyone else had left, there were only Luo Xiaobai and the others, as well as Ren Tianfei, left here. Ren Tianfei said with a smile, this place can't stop me. I'm leaving. This time, there will be many conflicts among the half-kings. After all, there needs to be a real strong master like me. Han Fei said with a smile, Old Man Ren, you have actually been to the Imperial Palace, haven't you? Ha! Ren Tianfei gave a hollow laugh. So what? That was a long time ago. The current Imperial Palace must be different from the past. I'm afraid it will only be more difficult for the current Imperial Palace. Han Fei said, no matter how difficult it is, there's no reason why you can't become a king this time. Unless you continue to explore the deepest part. Old Ren, don't go too far. Didn't the masters of the immortal palaces fight each other for treasures? Ren Tianfei said, hey. I don't know if I should say this or not. However, before Han Fei spoke, Ren Tianfei continued, it's not wrong to listen to Han Xian, but when it comes to the treasures of the Imperial Palace, don't be slow or not. If the kings had considered this, how many people would have grown to their current strength? Where do you think the heaven-opening state came from? The strong fight with others, with the heavens, with fate. Therefore, when it is time to fight, we must fight. Whether it was Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, or the others, after listening to Ren Tianfei's explanation, they couldn't help but be silent for a while. At this moment, the hexagon starfish said leisurely, well, I don't want to fight. Can I go to the Origin Sea with me? Everyone, Han Fei smiled coldly. Are you itching for a beating again? Hexagon starfish, Xia Shaochan pressed the hexagon starfish and said, you come with me. If I die, you die. That's the truth. Lu Renquang asked, then are we going to go our separate ways? Zhang Xuanyu grinned. Don't make it sound like we're going to die. We've been through many dangers since we were young. Each and every one of them had a narrow escape from death. Which one of them did not have a narrow escape? Luo Xiaobai said, this is no longer the time when we were still a 5-person team. The stronger we are, the less likely we are to form a team. But we all have our own path. If we can't pass it, it's our fate. If we pass it, there will be greater challenges waiting for us in the future. So, this trip to the Imperial Palace is just a hurdle. Xia Shaochan said, just work hard. Don't be so depressed. Lu Renkuang also said, yes, but I still think that at the critical moment, survival comes first. Take it easy. Don't be reckless. Everyone couldn't help looking at Han Fei. He was the only one who was reckless. Luo Xiaobai said, okay, let's go. Since there is only one entrance, we don't know how many there are. If there is a scramble, we have to guard against not only the sea creatures but also people. So, we need to disperse as soon as possible, find a suitable entrance, and enter directly. Han Fei nodded. Okay, in that case, see you when you come out. Xia Shaochan nodded. See you when you come out. Zhang Xuanyu said, I really look forward to the moment when I become a king. Don't look forward to it too much. Lu Renkuang said, I wonder if there is a kitchen in the emperor's house and if the ingredients inside are spoiled. Everyone, after bidding farewell to everyone, Han Fei said leisurely, Old Yuan. This time, it will decide whether we can go to the real infinite ocean or not. When it's necessary, lend me a hand. The old turtle said helplessly, help you now? I can't. You have grown to this point in this place. What else can I help you with? Han Fei said, at least, you know more than me. Although what you know may not be right. The old turtle said, although this is the Imperial Palace, I have never been here. But in fact, there are many places in this world where you can barely survive. Just do your best. With your current means, even if you can't explore the entire Imperial Palace, you can at least explore more than others. When you go to the outside world, if you come to find my real body, the place where I sleep will also have a lot of opportunities. Oh. Han Fei thought to himself, the old turtle is afraid that I will kill myself. If I die, he will also die, and I will definitely worry about him. However, Han Fei couldn't believe that there were many opportunities in the place where the old turtle's real body was. Could it be that he could become an emperor there? With the old turtle's character, he would probably sleep there. Only this could explain why he could also avoid the so-called Great World where the gods fell. Han Fei said, don't worry, I won't come here to die. Let's go. Before the Imperial Palace returns, it's meaningless to deal with the Grand Pure Wuji. I have to find a place to go in. Chapter 1991. Maybe it was not time yet, the entrance of the Imperial Palace had not been opened. And during this period of time, Han Fei didn't know whether it was a hunting feast for all the half-kings who came to the Imperial Palace or a hunting feast for the native creatures here, but there was bound to be a crazy fight. After everyone left, Han Fei wandered deeper. Han Fei was wondering if he would encounter other powerhouses in the Pioneer Sea State from the Immortal Palace, the 100 Demons clan, or the Seabed Human clan here. Because these people were confident of their strength, they tended to approach the center. And the closer to the center, the greater the chance of encountering them. At least Han Fei thought so. As for where the center of this sea area was, he only needed to look at the surrounding environmental colors. In the environment, the more red there was, the redder the background color, and the closer it was to the center. Han Fei didn't even think about it and directly rushed thousands of kilometers away. However, as soon as Han Fei's figure appeared, he saw a swish of black poisonous stings shooting at him. Han Fei glanced at it. It was just an advanced Venerable Realm sea urchin. How dare it attack him at such a low level? Han Fei didn't even bother to pay attention to it. How could an advanced Venerable Realm cultivator understand the speed of a Pioneer Sea State? Humph! With a cold snort from Han Fei, a terrifying pressure surged, and the sea urchin was directly crushed into a pancake, and even its soul and body exploded. It couldn't be more dead. Han Fei didn't care. He just thought that the abnormal movement of the Imperial Palace had some kind of power effect on these marine creatures, making them go crazy. They could feel his terror before, but now they couldn't feel it anymore. In fact, it was as Han Fei expected. He didn't know if it was because these creatures were too excited, but even facing Han Fei, some creatures still dared to choose to attack. Of course, they attacked selectively, not all of them. Maybe some creatures were too excited and had already gone crazy, so they attacked Han Fei. However, none of these creatures that would take the initiative to attack Han Fei were at the Half-King realm. Maybe he hadn't encountered them, or maybe the Half-King realm had a certain degree of self-awareness. Anyway, after Han Fei went 1,000,000 kilometers deeper into this place, he killed at most a dozen creatures along the way. He found that the deeper he went, the fewer creatures that would take the initiative to attack him. At this moment, a foot-long crab lay under Han Fei's feet. The overall color of the environment he was in was already slightly red, which meant that the colorful colors from earlier had mostly disappeared. The rest of the colors were mostly red or similar. The brightness of the colors was low, and the overall appearance was very dim. It gave off the feeling of a neon city in the fog. In the depths of the red mist sea, there were many complicated rock walls that could be described as grotesque and jagged rocks. Holding the navigator, Han Fei searched for the most suitable entrance for himself. However, the nautical panorama didn't move. Seeing this, Han Fei curled his lips and sat cross-legged. There was no point in searching blindly before the entrance appeared. As for the central region, he should have already reached it. As for why he hadn't met any other kings, it was possible that they hadn't even entered the central region. It was also possible that there was no way to sense them here, so they simply hadn't met each other. In fact, outside the red mist sea. At this moment, the half-monarchs of the celestial palaces of the 36 profound skies were entering. During the exploration of the Arch Palace, it was impossible for them to stick together. Even if they wanted to stick together, now was not the time. Instead, inside the Arch Palace, they would stick together in the form of humans, sea demons, mermaids, and sea humans. At this moment, the only thing everyone had to do was to find the entrance. Therefore, the major ships of the 36 profound heavens were relatively scattered. Because this time, not only were there half-monarchs entering the Arch Palace, but also many palace masters were also entering the Arch Palace. For example, when the Snow Lady came to the Red Mist Sea, she didn't stop at all and directly shouted, "Everyone, follow me." After entering the Red Mist Sea, disperse and look for the entrance. Yes, Your Majesty. In the 10,000 Poison Heaven, Huang Jia also led the half-monarchs into the Red Mist Sea. They heard Huang Jia say, "All of you listen to this prince. There are many strange poisons here, but you must not be greedy. The purpose of your trip is not to collect poisons, but to become monarchs. Once you reach the sea expansion realm, you will have 100,000 years or even longer to study poisons. You must distinguish your priorities." Yes. Ancestral Patriarch. And the other group of people, on the Grand Pure Wuji's side, was much more powerful. The Grand Pure Wuji set off with the Golden Crow, the Dream-Weaving Immortal Palace, the Five Elements Immortal Palace, and the Berserk Corpse Immortal Palace. Nominally, the Grand Pure Wuji, as the leader of the 36 profound heavens, took care of the other immortal palaces, just to make these immortal palaces submit to them. In fact, once they entered the Red Mist Sea, they would still go their separate ways. Only when these people entered the Arch Palace would they have a chance to gather again. But this method was extremely undesirable in the eyes of some independent immortal palaces. The treasures and resources were limited, and the immortal palace was so dangerous. Who would get the resources if they got them? They seemed to be in harmony now, but no one knew whether they would be in harmony when the time came. Wu Duoshuo of the Grand Pure Palace, Li Xinghan of the Wuji Heaven, these seed-type powerhouses were very likely to become monarchs, and each of them carried precious treasures with them. This time, they ignored Han Fei and had no intention of hunting him here. Even Bei Luochen didn't have this idea. Because the scope of this Red Mist Sea was too large. Who knew where Han Fei would go? Even if their perception range was large, they could find Han Fei. But so what? They had seen Han Fei's speed more than once or twice. On the side of the 100 demons and the human clan at the bottom of the sea. The leader of the kings almost said the same thing. Anyone who enters the Arch Palace doesn't need to fight fearlessly. The only thing you need to consider is how to become a monarch. Becoming a monarch is more important than anything else. In the dark, squads of rogue cultivators and half-monarchs often rushed in from various directions of the Red Mist Sea. Some extremely strange humanoid creatures were also rushing in. If Han Fei were here, he would definitely recognize them. Aren't they the Behemoth clan? On the side of the mermaid royal family. Xia Hongzhu stood quietly outside the Red Mist Sea. Her power passed through the red mist and collided with an invisible force in the depths of the Red Mist Sea. A violent tide immediately swept across the Red Mist Sea. On the surface of the sea, furious waves surged to the sky. Xia Hongzhu couldn't help but withdraw her power. She said, "I can't tell what kind of power it is, but it's not necessarily a living creature. It seems that the Arch Palace is real, and it's quite difficult to enter. I suspect that even a pioneer Sea Realm cultivator can't explore the entire Arch Palace and control the treasures there." Chen Huangdian said, "I don't know. I've never been there." Li Qingdi said, "It's indeed dangerous inside. The last time I entered, I encountered a severed hand. At that time, I thought that I was the strongest pioneer Sea Realm cultivator, but I barely escaped from that hand and almost died." Xia Hongzhu couldn't help but look at Li Qingdi. "A severed hand?" Li Qingdi nodded. "Yes. A severed hand that can be attached to other people." While Xia Hongzhu was slightly stunned, a large ship came unscrupulously. It was a warship of the Martial Emperor City. King Wu stood at the bow of the ship, but before he said anything, a king had already roared, "All half-monarchs, follow me into the Red Mist Sea." King Wu didn't seem to be too bothered. He simply looked at Xia Hongzhu from afar. When King Wu saw Xia Hongzhu, he narrowed his eyes and nodded at her. "It's an honor to meet you, Your Holiness, the War Queen. Do you know me?" Chen Huangdian looked at King Wu and said unhurriedly, "This is King Wu. He built the Martial Emperor City and suppressed the chaotic sea on his own. Nobody in this world is a match for him." Xia Hongzhu slightly nodded and then said, "If you hadn't wasted 100,000 years, you wouldn't be weaker than him." After the half-king realm powerhouses of the various forces entered this place, one of them died in just 100 breaths of time. This one died in the thunder fire heaven. Looking at the jade slip in his hand, Lei Qing secretly cursed, "I told you to be careful, you bastard." In the Red Mist Sea. As Han Fei expected, more than 4,000 people had broken in at this moment. As the independent cultivators and the people from the Martial Emperor City joined them, it was only a matter of time before the number exceeded 5,000. There was no telling whether those people were hunting or being hunted at this moment. They didn't have a target. All they knew was to charge into the depths of the Red Mist Sea. Some were lucky on their way and didn't run into any half-monarchs. Some were unlucky enough to see through their disguises and were killed on the spot. For example, there was a prawn demon who was vigilant and holding a spear that was full of energy. He crossed a winding grassland and killed a sea urchin, a centipede, and an octopus. Just when he thought that there was no danger around him, he temporarily stopped on a colorful stone pillar. Suddenly, a black light directly covered him. Crack! The prawn soldier didn't even know how he died. If he were still alive, he would have seen a certain part of the grassland that he had passed bearing its fangs and claws. It was clearly a seaweed centipede. The centipede was still chewing in its mouth. There were many situations like this. Han Fei, on the other hand, waited for more than 6 hours before the nautical panorama was finally activated. Chapter 1992. Following the navigator, Han Fei came to a weird place. There was a crack on the ground that was no more than a kilometer long and about 7 or 8 meters wide, which was very inconspicuous. Even a casual slash from Han Fei would be much larger than this, so even if someone noticed it under normal circumstances, they wouldn't necessarily go deep into it. But the navigator was pointing to this place, and Han Fei dove into it without hesitation. As soon as he went down 100 meters, he saw that the rock walls on both sides were dark red. However, on the dark red rock walls, there were also some weird greenish-yellow shimmers. After descending less than a kilometer, suddenly, a snake head crawled out of the rock wall. To be exact, it didn't look like a snake, but more like dead wood at the bottom of the sea. If Han Fei hadn't seen its information, he would have thought that a stone pillar had smashed at him. In Han Fei's eyes, information popped up. Name: Bloody Rock Python. Introduction: It lives in a bloody place and is corroded by the filthy blood all year round. It grows very fast, but it also dies very fast. It may only have a lifespan of more than 500 years. Its blood contains poison. If you are infected, you may lose your vitality, rot your body, or melt your blood. It's not to be underestimated. Level 89 Quality: A legendary level Half King. It contains chaotic energy greater than 48 strands. Battle techniques: A blood explosion, dimensional swallowing, bloody soul devouring, collectible, blood poison, soul devouring eye. Huh? Han Fei slashed his saber backhandedly. The saber light illuminated the place, and the pressure of a king slashed down. How could a mere half-king resist it? After one slash, the bloody rock python was directly minced into pieces, and the void lines quickly locked it down to absorb the chaotic energy. Because the bloody rock python could only live for 500 years, Han Fei didn't think it was a big deal that it had little chaotic energy. It could become a half-king in 500 years. He didn't know whether it was because of its talent or because of the unique environment here. Also, what kind of blood was the so-called filthy blood? Was the red color of this entire area actually tainted with a kind of blood color? After quickly absorbing the chaotic chi of this bloody light rock python, Han Fei did not think too much about it and continued to fly deeper. Another 1,000 meters or so, a transparent thorn grass suddenly emitted a red light. Every leaf had 7 sharp thorns, and the countless leaves came at him together, just like the big red trunk he had encountered before. Humph. With a thought in Han Fei's mind, the infinity water turned into thousands of knives, and wherever the knives passed, the thorn celery was all shattered. However, the thorn celery seemed to be just a beginning. Han Fei seemed to have turned on a switch for himself. After completely crushing it, the strange Buddha's tentacles, the red lava explosion fruit, and the blood-red stone moth's water caterpillar appeared. Almost in the blink of an eye, several powerful creatures attacked Han Fei. These attacks were all completed in an instant because before he encountered them, he had no idea where they were or how they would attack. They were all temporary responses that Han Fei made at the moment of the attack. Of course, with Han Fei's strength, no matter how well these creatures disguised themselves or how powerful their attacks were, they couldn't work. Although these creatures didn't have a long lifespan, they still contained some chaotic chi. After this wave of attacks, Han Fei's chaotic chi soared. In just half an hour, Han Fei had more than 50,000 strands of chaotic chi. Yes, in terms of the amount of chaotic chi, Han Fei had almost caught up with the amount of chaotic chi when the old turtle opened the sky. Although Han Fei didn't know how much chaotic chi people like Bei Luochen and He Daoyuan had when they opened the sky, it shouldn't be a lot. But he wasn't sure. If they slowly absorbed the chaotic chi over time, they might have at least 40,000 or 50,000 strands. Half an hour later. Han Fei didn't know how far he had gone, but there were fewer and fewer normal creatures that attacked him. Han Fei sensed the strong blood chi. Even he felt that this blood chi was not good. It was trying to drill into his body. How could Han Fei let them do that? The surface of his body was shining with a golden light, which was repelling the bloody chi all the time. Pop! As if some kind of barrier had been broken, the strange and disgusting creatures around him disappeared almost instantly. Or, he got rid of them. However, this place was not a good place to be. Han Fei saw stone pillars of different shapes that looked like the Gobi Desert one after another. But here, not only was the bloody chi strong, but there was also a lot of death energy. Undead creatures? Han Fei was stunned. In such a dense atmosphere of death, it was impossible for there to be no undead creatures. As soon as Han Fei stood still, he saw spirals appearing one after another around the neon rock wall. But these spirals were not whirlpools in the water. Han Fei saw soul shadows one after another. Swoosh, like a sharp arrow, it shot straight at Han Fei. When the spiral shot over, Han Fei felt that this thing was actually nailing directly to his soul. However, no matter how strong these spirals were, they were only at the half-king realm, so they were still ineffective against him. Han Fei even caught a spiral that passed by him. He took a closer look, and information appeared in his eyes. Name: Sea Soul Cone Snail, Undead Creature. Introduction: The sea soul cone snail is corroded by the undead energy and gradually turns into an undead creature. Its body is twisted like a sea leech, which can attack the soul. Once touched by it, the soul will be easily damaged. Level 89 Quality: Exotic Realm. Half-King Realm contains 58 strands of undead energy. Combat Technique: Spiral Soul Piercing. Collectible: Unabsorbable. Han Fei was speechless. The creatures at the Half-King Realm were ugly, but they were alive. But this one didn't even have chaotic energy. It was purely a waste of his time. The infinity water barely formed a blade barrier in front of Han Fei, pushing forward all the way. Bam! 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 Wherever it passed, the neon rock wall and the sea soul cone snails were collapsing. None of them could escape the strangulation range of the infinity water. However, this was not the end. This kind of sea soul cone snail was just a very ordinary creature. Because it was born in this special place, it could reach the terrifying strength of the Half-King Realm. If it weren't for this special place, even if these conches were given 5,000 years to cultivate, even if they could reach the Half-King Realm, there wouldn't be so many of them now. But behind these conches, there were even more dangerous creatures. They were densely packed insects that looked like ants. As soon as he saw them, Han Fei felt a headache. These things were just like the marching sea leeches. They were like sea leeches. They were the most terrifying. Humph! How can these ordinary creatures bear the authority of a king? Break! At that moment, Han Fei released all his power and was surrounded by a large array. Although it was not as powerful as the Qianji Divine Ghost Coil, it was still not to be underestimated. Puff! 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 The countless little bugs the size of a thumb were annihilated when they collided with Han Fei's protective array. In Han Fei's eyes, information jumped wildly. Name: Ghost Aphid, Undead Creature. Introduction: This is a kind of seabed aphid that was corroded by undead creatures and collectively transformed into ghost aphid. This insect has a trace of extremely rotten saliva, which can slowly nibble away even sea-quelling bizarre treasures. Level S70 Quality: Exotic Realm. Dao Seeking. It contains immortal energy. 1 Wisp. Combat Skill: Ghost Aphid Feast. Collectible: Unabsorbable. Han Fei was speechless when he was attacked by so many weird creatures in a row. In particular, these ghost aphids were far stronger than the creatures in front of him. Even if the infinity water turned into a tornado of thousands of knives, it was impossible to completely block these ghost aphids. And the array outside Han Fei's body was almost covered by the ghost aphids in an instant. As the ghost aphids were annihilated, his hundreds of arrays were also melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this moment, it was a competition of endurance. He wanted to see whether these ghost aphids would be exhausted first or his spiritual energy would be insufficient to resist the devouring of the ghost aphids. Puff, puff, puff! Han Fei's pressure and killing arrays appeared at the same time. The infinity water strangled the ghost aphids crazily, and the crack was already turbid. After half an hour, Han Fei was slightly shocked. He couldn't imagine how many ghost aphids there were. There must be hundreds of millions of them. Even he couldn't go on like this. Not to mention the crazy remodeling of arrays, the use of the infinity water would consume his soul power. Han Fei couldn't help but show a hint of pain. He raised his hands. Apocalyptic Divine Technique. Hum. The healing divine light descended, and the entire abyss suddenly lit up. With a sizzling sound, countless ghost aphids were purified. After Han Fei consumed more than 800 years of vitality, most of the ghost aphids here were purified. And just when Han Fei cast the healing divine light, someone passed by outside the entrance of this place. Since this person dared to appear in the deepest part and look for the entrance, he was undoubtedly in the Pioneer Sea state. The person who came was sitting with a big-headed doll on his shoulder. It was Hong Yu's spiritual beast, the Thousand Puppet. The Thousand Puppet said, "There seems to be a battle inside." Hong Yu nodded. It turns out that the more dangerous it is outside, the safer it is inside. It seems that this is not a safe place. This way is fine. I wonder who was so lucky to find this place. Let's go and have a look. Chapter 1993. Son of a bitch, I've wasted 1,000 years of my vitality just to find an entrance. Han Fei felt terrible. Although he could devour the vitality of others, he didn't feel good at all. Although he could devour the vitality of others, after he became a king, he found a problem, that was, even if he had the void lines, his vitality was not infinite. Although he could absorb vitality, there was an upper limit. Han Fei had a hunch that after absorbing vitality for more than 100,000 years, it would be extremely difficult for him to continue absorbing vitality. In other words, in addition to his own 100,000 years of vitality, he might have another 100,000 years of vitality. But now, he had already destroyed almost all of them, and that was 30,000 years. He spent 1,000 years here and another 1,000 years there. How many years had it been? He had used the Heaven Awakening Divine Art to consume 30,000 years of life force. If this continued, if he was allowed to stay in the chaotic Azure Sea for another few hundred years, the extra 100,000 years of life force would probably be used up just by fighting a few battles or challenging someone of a higher realm. However, Han Fei thought that this imperial palace might be the greatest opportunity in the chaotic Azure Sea. Therefore, since he had started to use the Heaven Awakening Divine Art, he might as well prepare 20,000 years of vitality and see if he could consume all of it. Most of the ghost aphis had been purified, and 80% of them had been annihilated. The rest either couldn't or didn't dare to approach Han Fei, which was an instinctive fear of the Heaven Awakening Divine Art. Han Fei thought to himself, after this pass, there shouldn't be any more danger, right? After all, the danger of the ghost aphis was high enough to shake a Pioneer Sea realm cultivator. If there were stronger creatures, Han Fei would wonder if he had come to the wrong place. However, misfortune never comes alone. This insect cave. Yes, Han Fei felt that this was an insect cave. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei saw that the surrounding rock walls had been covered with a thick black and red liquid like magma. In the thick magma, Han Fei saw a few long tentacles, which looked extremely weird. In Han Fei's eyes, a new kind of insect appeared. Name: a Joying demonic insect, mutated. Introduction: an ancient ferocious beast with the bloodline of Joying. It controls water and fire and swallows death energy to refine demons. Because he had been trapped here for so long, he had devoured too many strange demonic insects, causing his body to mutate, becoming a half-insect half-beast mutated life form. The demonic insect of Joying cried like a baby, its demonic voice tainting one's soul. Palm elemental fire, ominous water. Elemental fire burning the body, fierce water rushing the soul, it was not to be underestimated. Level A92, quality, primeval beast, realm, sea expansion, contains chaotic energy, 4,659 wisps, battle skills, elemental fire, fierce water, crying 9 heads, collectible, tainted blood, absorbable, a sea expansion ancient beast. Han Fei's expression changed slightly. This was no ordinary king, but a primeval beast. Of course, it was still inferior to the Emperor Sparrow. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. If that's the case, why don't we let the Emperor Sparrow do it? With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, the Emperor Sparrow suddenly appeared. Just as the Emperor Sparrow was getting impatient, it saw the 9-headed nascent demon bug and couldn't help but exclaim, "9-headed nascent demon? No. A mixed blood descendant." His bloodline had actually been contaminated to such an extent. "Where did you find such a thing? I can't even eat it." His body and soul have basically been contaminated. Han Fei said, "You are both primeval beasts, and you are the nemesis of the insect clan. How about I give this bug to you?" The Emperor Sparrow glanced at Han Fei. "The tainted blood is not worthy of me. You can try it yourself." Han Fei was speechless. "What do you mean by the tainted blood is not worthy of you? Even if its bloodline is tainted, it is still a primeval beast. Why do you make it sound like it is an ant?" At this moment, the nine-headed nascent demon bug had also sensed Han Fei and the Emperor Sparrow. Especially the Emperor Sparrow, it felt very uneasy. "Yeah, instantly, there was the sound of a baby crying, but it also sounded like a baby laughing." For a moment, Han Fei couldn't tell whether the other party was crying or laughing. However, the voice echoed infinitely in this place. It was fine to listen to it once, but Han Fei felt his head hurt when he heard it 2 or 3 times. Even though Han Fei blocked his hearing, he found that the sound was directly in his soul and he couldn't avoid it. Han Fei snorted. Han Fei attacked with the Dao Convergence Sword. It was unreasonable to fight like this. When fighting an enemy, you should kill them with one strike. Since the nine-headed nascent demon bug didn't know what was good for it, he would just kill it. However, when Han Fei saw layers of blood tides appearing in the void to meet the Dao Convergence Sword, he couldn't help but be stunned. Is that the ominous water? Each wave of the fierce water seemed to be hundreds of millions of kilograms. When they collided with each other, this place shook violently as if it would collapse at any time. Han Fei's heart sank. The Dao Convergence Sword broke the barriers one after another, but after it destroyed the fierce water, it only cut off one tentacle with a puff. Han Fei saw with his own eyes that the tentacle took the initiative to roll toward the Dao Convergence Sword. Although it was smashed into pieces immediately, Han Fei's Dao Convergence Sword had consumed more than half of its power. Then, hundreds of tentacle shadows slapped at Han Fei in a row, and finally, Han Fei's Dao Unification Sword was broken. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. Although he didn't use the power of the Great Path, he was much stronger than ordinary kings now. When Han Fei was dissatisfied that he couldn't kill the enemy with one strike, he saw the smashed tentacle was ignited in the air. It seemed that a terrifying fire energy instantly filled the whole crack. Behind him, Hong Yu, who was chasing him, was fighting some half-dead ghost aphids with a pale face. All of a sudden, a terrifying fiery light engulfed the entire fissure. The temperature was no longer the key. The key was that the fire seemed to be burning every bit of his flesh and blood. Hong Yu couldn't help but gasp. What kind of fire is this? It seems to be burning every bit of my flesh and blood. It hurts so much. Hong Yu, who was still far away, was already in such a state. Han Fei, who was closest to it, couldn't be any better. This thing didn't seem to have much to do with the strength of his physique. It just made him feel extreme pain in a way that made him feel pain. On one hand, he felt physical pain, and on the other hand, the red tide was coming at him, which was probably mental pain. How could Han Fei bear that? Han Fei shouted, "Apocalypse Divine Technique." Although the nine-headed nascent demon bug was not an undead creature, its bloodline was too dirty, and the effect of the Apocalypse Divine Technique on it was no less than that of an undead creature. When the healing divine light fell, the nine-headed nascent demon bug screamed wildly as if it was in great pain. Han Fei grinned. "Come on. Let's see who can bear it. How can a little bug like you understand what I'm doing when I'm cultivating my body?" Although Han Fei felt that every inch of his skin and flesh was being torn apart, the pressure was transmitted from his body to his spirit. However, the pressure caused by this was transmitted from the body to the spirit, and it wouldn't really hurt the body. At most, it would weaken his combat power, so Han Fei was not afraid at all. The 100-beast soul-devouring roar burst out, and Han Fei slashed out with the yin-yang reincarnation knife. A dark blue light appeared in front of him, and Han Fei casually drew out the blade of time. Golden light shone on it, and he cut off 3 tentacles with one slash. Blood spurted out crazily. The Emperor Sparrow watched such a violent head-on battle quietly. Feeling that his flesh and blood were not used to it, the Emperor Sparrow glared at the nine-headed nascent demon bug, and the latter went berserk and attacked Han Fei with all its strength. Han Fei looked at the Emperor Sparrow speechlessly. "Even if you don't want to help, don't make trouble." The Emperor Sparrow said, "I just want you to feel the power of the prehistoric fierce beasts. Although this disgusting bug has reached the Pioneer Sea state, its power doesn't seem real. It seems to have been raised quickly, so I don't need to attack it at all. However, it doesn't mean that it's not strong." Han Fei said, "I found it. If its demonic sound was several times stronger, I would have to guard my soul. Moreover, I would feel like my body is being torn apart, which would greatly affect the effect of my attack." At this moment, the nine-headed nascent demon bug's tentacles were pulled out of the magma. There were some skulls hanging on each of its tentacles, and all the sounds came from the skulls. The nine-headed nascent demon bug seemed to know that it had no way to escape, so a sharp needle protruded out of its mouth. As soon as it appeared, the surrounding seawater was dyed dark red. Han Fei didn't dare to be careless. A blue halo enveloped the area, and he slashed at the nine-headed nascent demon bug. The nine-headed nascent demon bug was instantly cut into several pieces. At this moment, the yin-yang reincarnation knife burst out at the same time, and the nine-headed nascent demon bug's soul was directly cut into pieces. Only then did Han Fei have the time to absorb the chaotic chi with the void lines. At this moment, the Emperor Sparrow and Han Fei looked back at the same time. Then, he saw a familiar figure running away. When Hong Yu saw this scene, the 1,000 puppets shouted immediately, "Run! Run! It's Han Fei and his bird." In fact, when Hong Yu saw the person below was Han Fei, he directly ran away without the 1,000 puppets' reminder. That guy's strength was already beyond ordinary. No one in the Pioneer Sea state could kill him. This was the conclusion of the martial Emperor City's intelligence. As Hong Yu ran, he thought to himself, "There's a Pioneer Sea state creature at the entrance. Is there a big opportunity here?" Chapter 1994. Hong Yu just remembered this place, but he didn't dare to enter it. If it was someone else, it wouldn't be a big deal, but he was so unlucky that he almost met Han Fei 3 times in a row. Most importantly, every time he met Han Fei, he saw a king die. The first time was when he went to the barbaric abyss with Hu Biuli. At that time, Han Fei killed Yu Meng and Gong Zhan fled. The second time was in the Medicine King Heaven. Han Fei pretended to be the second sword god king and killed a king with one sword. This time, although Han Fei didn't kill a human demi-king, it was obvious that there was a Pioneer Sea realm monster that was almost killed by Han Fei. It was only a matter of time before it died. "Hey! Old Hong, what kind of luck do you have? Why do you always meet Han Fei? If there's another chance, let's just surrender." Hong Yu ran away in disgrace. Han Fei didn't let him down. He had already sucked up the chaotic chi of the nine-headed demon bug. Now it was already a dead bug. Han Fei moved his body and felt that the pain in his body just now was almost as painful as the heart-wrenching pain when he practiced the indestructible body art. He had to admit that even the mixed bloodline of the prehistoric ferocious beasts was not to be underestimated. Even against someone like him who could be considered as one of the top few kings in the chaotic vast sea, the nine-headed nascent demon bug was enough to reduce his battle strength by 30%. If it were an ordinary person, his combat power would probably be reduced by 50%. Besides, this nine-headed demon bug was good at soul attacks. If his soul was not strong enough, he might not be able to defeat it. At this moment, after absorbing the chaotic chi of the nine-headed demon bug, Han Fei directly threw its corpse to the back to feed the bugs. This thing's body had already been contaminated. Although it had become a king, it would never have a chance to become an emperor. When the nine-headed demon bug died, the red magma around it seemed to be fading. When Han Fei continued to go deeper into the chasm, no more creatures attacked him. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei saw a vortex gate. Shoot! When Han Fei saw the vortex gate, he was dumbfounded. He had spent so much effort to come here. In the end, he opened a black entrance for himself. Han Fei still remembered what Han Xian told him. The door was divided into 3 colors, one was blue-black, one was red, and the last one was black. Among them, it was especially emphasized that black entrances should not be entered, as they were almost a door of death. Han Fei didn't feel good at that time. Han Fei immediately took out the nautical panorama and tried again. As a result, the nautical panorama pointed at the black vortex. Han Fei didn't want to use the 9-palace ruler of Providence because the imperial palace was definitely dangerous, so the 9-palace ruler of Providence wouldn't end well at this time. Of course, even though he knew it, he still tested it. As a result, the 9-palace ruler of Providence displayed a form that Han Fei had never seen before. The indicator moved back and forth between great fortune and desperation. But shouldn't such a situation indicate that he's a Hellguard? How could he use such a method to move? Han Fei couldn't help but take a deep breath. Could it be that the 9-palace ruler of fortune couldn't detect the danger of the imperial palace and couldn't see through his luck here? Han Fei suspected that it was probably because of this reason. This meant that the 9-palace ruler of Providence also had an upper limit. As a human holy weapon, it was not a divine weapon. Logically speaking, it should be at the same level as a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, but he didn't use it for fighting. Since the 9-palace ruler of Providence had an upper limit, Han Fei didn't know if the nautical panorama had an upper limit. But after all, finding a way should be easier than measuring luck. Han Fei felt that the nautical panorama might have more usable space. Now the 9-palace ruler of Providence was useless, and the nautical panorama clearly pointed at this black vortex entrance. What could Han Fei do? Although he didn't want to enter, he still had to enter. Because no matter how dangerous this entrance was, the nautical panorama said that it was the most suitable for him. Since it was the most suitable for him, maybe he could also turn misfortune into fortune. After hesitating for a while, Han Fei gritted his teeth and decided to enter. Although Han Xian, as his uncle, had no reason to lie to him. However, there must be a reason for the black vortex entrance to exist. Besides, Han Xian also said that the more difficult it was outside the entrance, the less dangerous it was inside the entrance. Obviously, from this point of view, maybe this black vortex might not be as dangerous as he thought. Since he had made up his mind, Han Fei didn't intend to change it. Anyway, no matter which entrance he chose, he might as well enter the one that was most suitable for him. With a swish, Han Fei disappeared into the vortex. When Han Fei reappeared, the void stabilized, and Han Fei looked around immediately. This was a lush green forest. There were many strange demonic plants of various colors. There were huge pure blue flowers with white stamens that spread out in circles. There were dark green plants like feather fans, like peacocks spreading their wings to show off. There were bright red semi-arc-shaped flowers, like the shape of squid, with many tentacles wrapped in the flowers, and the tentacles looked like extended stamens. The first thing Han Fei wanted to do was to release his perception, but in fact, perception was still useless, so all he could see was what was in front of him. A forest? Han Fei shook his head slightly. It didn't look like one. Those trees didn't look like trees. The shape of the tree was strange, like a lantern, and from the leaves, a huge curved gourd hung down. There were also some trees that looked like trees, but the leaves were strange, like the broad leaves of seaweed. Han Fei didn't know what kind of tree would grow like this. Han Fei quickly calmed down. He came here to look for opportunities. Han Xian told him to take it slow and not to be too hasty. The implication was that every scene he encountered might have its own meaning. Han Fei didn't know what was here, but he still planned to call Little Black and Little White out to see if they could show him the way. Today, he had used the nautical panorama twice, in this strange environment. If he couldn't pass the time of the nautical panorama safely, then he didn't need to use it. Therefore, Han Fei naturally thought of Little Black and Little White. As soon as Little Black and Little White were called out by Han Fei, Little White exclaimed, "Dad! There are so many enemies." Huh? Han Fei was dumbfounded. Where are the enemies? Why don't I see a single one? And at this moment, Little Black swooped over Han Fei's head, where there was a thin vine. Han Fei had seen this thin vine when it first appeared. It was hanging from a big leaf like a broad leaf above his head. It hadn't moved until now, otherwise, he would have found it. However, Little Black took a bite and broke the thin vine. Han Fei was about to ask Little Black when he became a vegetarian, when he saw that the vine was twisting. Shit! Han Fei's eyelids twitched. It was not a tree vine, nor a demonic vine, but a worm. It even had flesh and blood. Although the flesh and blood were almost dried up, the worm could still fight back. Although he couldn't see where Little Black was, the vine split into dozens in an instant and grabbed in Little Black's direction. Chomp, chomp. However, Little Black's teeth were much stronger than these small vines, and they were bitten by him quickly. Anyway, as long as Little Black could digest them. And Little Black moved like this. It was like a fuse, as if a fire had been lit in the forest. He saw several kinds of demonic plants that Han Fei had paid special attention to just now. For example, the big pure blue flower. Every circle of its patterns was pulled from the flower like a sweater thread. When he looked again, the blobs on the patterns moved and opened their eyes. Isn't that a worm? It was the first time that Han Fei had seen a ring-shaped worm. And the dark green feather-like plant, which looked like a peacock spreading its tail. As a matter of fact, every single hair on the feather fell off and surged at Han Fei. And the red flower with white stamens. That was not a squid at all. It was simply a round leaf with a bunch of worms wrapped in it. Han Fei was dumbfounded. He remembered the place he came from. Wasn't it a worm cave? Oh my god, now he was in a real worm cave. As far as he could see, all he could see were worms. The point was that they could perfectly turn into the form of plants. When Han Fei was shocked by this scene, he saw the calabash on his head suddenly explode. Yes, it exploded for no reason. But if it exploded, then so be it. What was up with the millions of bugs that shot out? Wasn't this purely disgusting? Ew, what was the difference between Han Fei and the ghost aphis worms just now? With a thought, Han Fei fused Little Black and Little White. The infinity water turned into a rotating storm, crushing countless worms and bursting into a rain of sticky, disgusting liquid. More importantly, this liquid was highly toxic. The array that Han Fei stepped on was corroded dozens of layers in just 2 seconds. Han Fei could see several kinds of worms with a casual glance. For example, name exploding worm. Introduction. This is a kind of worm that will only be conceived in the fetus and will never take the initiative to come out. The fetus nourishes these exploding worms by absorbing the spiritual energy from the outside world. Once the fetus explodes, all the exploding worms will be ejected and explode within 10 seconds. Its liquid is super corrosive. If you stay in the liquid of the exploding worms for a long time, even your body will be corroded. Level 29 Quality Rare Realm Spirit Guarding Realm Spiritual Energy greater than 481 points. Combat Skills None Collectible and None Unabsorbable. Chapter 1995. At this moment, the exploding worms had almost surrounded Han Fei. Countless worms piled up like a mountain, pressing Han Fei to the bottom of the mountain. Moreover, this was not the only gourd that exploded. 2 other gourds that were close to it had also exploded. That was like a tide of worms, similar to the ghost aphis worms. But the problem was that the ghost aphis worms were undead creatures, while the exploding worms were living creatures. Another piece of information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name 10,000 rotations leaf worm. Introduction. As a kind of worm born as grass, the 10,000 rotations leaf worm's strength is judged by how long it lives. The longer it lives, the more resilient it is and the stronger its binding ability is. The 10,000 rotations leaf worm can turn into soul-binding threads, entangling and blinding the souls of others. Level 39 Equality Rare Realm Awakened. It contains spiritual energy 1-248. A battle technique, binding, collectible and unabsorbable. When Han Fei saw the insect roll towards him, it suddenly disappeared when it was right in front of him. He was still wondering what was going on, but it turned out that it could actually turn into invisible threads to bind his soul. Explode. Without hesitation, Han Fei detonated the infinity water. He was so decisive because he didn't know how big this forest was. Of course, he could run away with a single leap, but what about after that? If the environment he encountered was the same, would he continue to aimlessly leap with golden light? Instead of doing that, he might as well detonate the infinity water. With the current power of the infinity water, even the exploding worm and the myriad will leaf worm within 50,000 kilometers would be vaporized directly, as it was impossible for them to survive. Rumble. Han Fei didn't care whether this place was an imperial palace or not. If he kept fighting these things, he wouldn't be able to absorb as much spiritual energy as they did. Unless he used the resources in the Origin Sea. If it was an ordinary half-step monarch, they might have already fallen for it. After all, if an ocean of exploding worms corroded them at the same time, the speed at which they absorbed resources might not be able to keep up with the speed at which they corroded them. As if a nuclear bomb had exploded, countless woodlands around him were flattened to the ground at Han Fei's naked eyes. As Han Fei waved his hand, the infinity water quickly returned to him. Han Fei didn't use it again but directly extracted the water vapor here to prepare for the recovery of the infinity water. In addition, Han Fei had already begun to accumulate spiritual energy. If this place was large enough, the infinity water wouldn't be able to destroy it. When the aftermath of the explosion died down, Han Fei was unscathed. He looked around the room again. He was surprised to find that the explosion of the infinity water did not shake this space at all. Apart from this place was filled with poisonous gas, perhaps because he had destroyed too many creatures. Most of the bugs and poisons had already completely dissipated, but there were still some poisons that could not be evaporated by the explosion and were still intertwining in the air. As a result, in Han Fei's mind, the 9 poisons treasure silkworm kept devouring, and Han Fei's body was also spontaneously absorbing and adapting to these poisons. Combining with Little Black and Little White, Han Fei tried to perceive the surroundings with Little White's ability, but the result was the same as in the Mist Sea. There was no chance at all. Little White was also restricted. In this case, Han Fei still put away Little Black and Little White, set up the soul-driving array for himself, grabbed a bottle of detoxification pills, and swallowed dozens of them. He didn't want the 9 poisons treasure silkworm to fall asleep, nor did he want to be poison-resistant to the limit. Han Fei leaped up, and with a flash of golden light, he flew more than 50,000 kilometers in that direction. As soon as he appeared, some dilapidated woodlands immediately appeared, but most of them had been scorched. What a large insect cave! 50,000 kilometers in length and width is still not enough. When Han Fei wandered along the entire explosion range, halfway through, he found that from the unknown forest, a tide of bugs was surging towards the open space that had just been exploded. Holy shit, Han Fei was dumbfounded. There are still so many of them. Even if the infinity water exploded again, it wouldn't be able to kill them all. The explosion of the infinity water only proved that there were too many bugs here and it was impossible to kill them all. At this time, Han Fei certainly wouldn't be stupid enough to kill the bugs. He knew that no matter what, he couldn't stay here. Otherwise, it wouldn't take long for the bug tide to cover the entire place, forming a vast ocean of bugs. Han Fei found that he only had 2 choices now. One was to fight in the bug tide and find a way. Han Fei could do this himself. However, Han Fei remembered what Han Xian said. Generally speaking, the things in the imperial palace were not meaningless. In such a large sea of bugs, were there treasures in it? If there were no treasures, then why did they break in? To fight with the bug tide? Courting death? In the imperial palace, countless people had obtained opportunities from it, indicating that it was very likely to be a test. For example, a strong master wanted to accept a disciple and pass on his skills. If it was the second case, then there must be something waiting for him in this bug-tied forest. The bug tide might be a test to make him panic. However, the strength of the bug tide here was not very strong, which meant that although there were hundreds of millions of bugs here, the ones who came were at least in the venerable realm. If he was lucky, there was still a glimmer of hope for survival. However, because Han Fei was the first to come here, he simply turned a multiplayer mode that should be explored by countless people into a single-player mode. Of course, the degree of difficulty soared. Han Fei quickly made up his mind at this moment. God knew how many bugs there were here. But at least these bugs couldn't hurt him. Even if he continued to explode the infinity water, he could still kill countless bugs. Therefore, Han Fei didn't care where the way out of this bug-tied forest was at all. He held the nautical panorama and used the third pointing ability without hesitation. When the nautical panorama started, Han Fei leaped and flashed tens of thousands of kilometers away. Sure enough, as soon as Han Fei appeared, there was really a surging bug tide around him. Worms, beetles, nematodes, thousand-luan leaf worms, and many bugs that Han Fei passed by without even looking at their information were almost about to crush Han Fei's face. The halo of time appeared, and everything that came into contact with it was annihilated. But Han Fei only stayed for a very short time. As soon as the bugs within hundreds of meters withered, Han Fei had disappeared. The nautical panorama only had 6 to 8 seconds, and this was because the destination was certain. If the destination was not certain, or was not within this space, the sea-shaking panorama would only point once. When Han Fei saw the nautical panorama move, he knew that there must be a treasure guarded by thousands of bugs hidden in this so-called bug-tied forest. Because of the reaction time of the nautical panorama, Han Fei had to pause every time he appeared to let the nautical panorama repoint the direction. Therefore, Han Fei could barely maintain the frequency of 2 leaps per second. After 6 seconds in a row, Han Fei should not be far from the place pointed by the nautical panorama. When Han Fei appeared again, suddenly, Han Fei found that the surrounding field of vision was wide. And when he took a closer look, he found that there was not even a bug where he was. Looking around, Han Fei found that more than 20 kilometers behind him was the place where the bug tide was surging. Did I enter the barrier? Han Fei's first thought was that he had found the key place. Because this was a place guarded by the bugs, there were no bugs. Han Fei walked toward the inside of the barrier. After walking more than 300 kilometers, right in front of Han Fei, at the end of his sight, a place that looked like an altar appeared. However, the thing placed on the altar was very strange. It looked like a bronze mirror that had been polished to the point where it could be seen down to the finest detail. And under the altar stood a man in black with 2 scimitars in his hands and half of his face covered. When he saw this person, Han Fei was shocked. He knew that the real test had come. The bug tide was not necessarily the key, but this person and the mirror behind him were the root of the problem. Han Fei took a step and was only 10 kilometers away from that person, and that person seemed to feel that someone was coming and slowly raised his head. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Since this was the most suitable place for him, there must be a reason. There was no energy flow in this person's body at all, but the sense of threat he posed to Han Fei was not weak, not particularly strong, but definitely not weak in the Pioneer Sea realm. Han Fei asked, "Is it a human or an insect? Can it talk?" Because all he saw were insects, Han Fei naturally had a bold guess. After all, the Bug King was also an insect, and it could also transform into a human. However, the man did not respond but slowly pulled up his scimitars. With a swoosh, Han Fei saw 2 wisps of smoke appear in front of him. Subconsciously, the embroidery needle in front of Han Fei stood up and fixed on the ground like a sea-calming needle. Clang! The crisp sound was the collision of weapons, which shook out a layer of ripples and wanted to spread out. Chapter 1996. Taking a closer look, Han Fei found no data in his eyes, which meant that this person was not an insect. However, this person's appearance was very weird. He seemed to be tattooed all over his body, which should be some kind of spell engraved on his body. Especially on his face, there was almost no normal skin. It was full of dark green spells. Han Fei blocked the power of the double knives and immediately launched the void lines, intending to control this person with the void lines. And the opponent's double knives circled the embroidery needles and slashed at Han Fei. The two of them chose different ways of attack, and to Han Fei's shock, the void lines didn't work at all, which meant that this person might not even have a broken soul. Almost at the same time, blue light flowed around Han Fei's upper body, and the two terrifying knife lights cut directly into time and space but didn't touch Han Fei's head. After this blow, Han Fei withdrew the void lines, and the opponent turned into a cloud of black smoke and retreated. In the first confrontation, no one gained any advantage. Since the opponent didn't even have a residual soul, he was like a puppet. But this kind of character was not afraid of life and death, had no emotions, and his fighting style continued the fighting style of the original body, which was also extremely powerful. Han Fei quickly judged the opponent's strength. Judging from the power shown by this blow, the opponent's power was less than 200,000 waves. However, this person was fast, could turn into smoke, and had a unique way of using the double knives. That was all Han Fei could see from this blow. The two separated as soon as they collided, but then the strange man seemed to feel Han Fei's strength. He clasped one hand and made a strange seal, and then a tide of insects drilled out of the ground. Originally, there were no insects in this area, and Han Fei thought it was because of the special environment here. But now it seemed that this was not the case. This person could control insects, and the reason why he didn't let the insects enter this area was probably to protect the bronze mirror on the altar. At this moment, Han Fei was an intruder, and he was not weak, so he used the means of controlling insects. So, this person's main ability was to control insects. Although Han Fei didn't want to deal with a lot of insects, it didn't mean that he was really afraid of them. In addition to detonating the infinity water, Han Fei had many means. Han Fei stretched out his hand and clawed out a crack in the void. Bam! He didn't want to use this space crack to fight, so he crushed it in the next moment. Everything within a radius of dozens of meters exploded, and the void turbulence wreaked havoc. As Han Fei opened his hands, the infinity water continued to turn into blades and cut the storm bigger and bigger. Han Fei grinned. It's a pity that your insects are too low level. If they could grow to the level of law enforcer, I wouldn't have killed them in such a simple way. Buzz, however, the strange man clasped his hands together, and the countless insects that were swarming toward him intertwined with each other, turning into hundreds and thousands of humanoid figures. And his appearance was very similar to the weirdo in front of Han Fei. You can play this way. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. The strength of these interweaving insects soared after they turned into human beings. In the blink of an eye, thousands of explorers had appeared here, and they were still trying to fuse with each other. Han Fei's heart sank. If he continued to cultivate like this, wouldn't he soon reach the Venerable Realm? Buzz, Han Fei directly projected a sea expansion realm clone, and the clone even drew a knife in the void at will. Bam! 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 In the blink of an eye, dozens of explorers were chopped into pieces. But at the moment when these explorers were chopped into pieces, a large amount of corrosive liquid drifted in the void and flowed towards the pile of insects. Han Fei realized that behind the pile of insects, perhaps a powerful insect man was being born. Han Fei knew that he must not give this weirdo a chance. Otherwise, with so many insects fusing with each other, it was not impossible to create another sea expansion realm master. Therefore, Han Fei immediately took action, trying to take the initiative to find and kill the strong master in the pile of insects behind. However, the weirdo in front of him seemed to have burst out with all his strength, turning into a black smoke and wrapping himself in it. And in the black smoke, thousands of knives slashed down at Han Fei in the blink of an eye. The speed was so fast that Han Fei felt it was Xia Shaochan who was attacking. However, it was precisely because Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had fought too many times that he was very used to this kind of explosive power. Besides, this person didn't even have a soul. How could he block Han Fei's Dao of Time? Unknowingly, a blue screen of light had appeared within the black fog. At the moment this light curtain appeared, Han Fei could clearly see that in this black smoke, there was a black shadow holding two knives and slashing crazily. Clang, clang, clang like an iron wall. Han Fei was slashed hundreds of times in an instant, but he also took advantage of the time when he was slashed hundreds of times to directly lock onto the black shadow, and with a flip of his hand, he launched the immortal fierce chi. In the face of such an enemy who could control billions of insects, if Han Fei dared to be careless, when the insects really fused with each other and turned into a super strong master, it would be even more difficult to fight at that time. The weirdo tried to avoid the immortal fierce chi, but being slowed down by time, he knew he could only take it head-on. Crack, crack, crack around this person, 7 void cracks appeared, and a huge number of Hercules insects crawled out of them. The power of the immortal fierce chi was naturally terrifying. However, this space was suddenly filled with Hercules insects, and colorful longhorn beetles also appeared. With just one attack, hundreds of thousands of Hercules insects and longhorn beetles were turned into powder. The weirdo was retreating quickly, and a few tens of millions of insects in front of him stood in front of him, in order to take Han Fei's blow. Humph! Han Fei ran the great path completely, turned into a golden light, and jumped in front of the weirdo. He poked with 2 fingers, and the great path becomes one sword stabbed at the weirdo. The weirdo was still expressionless, even though he was about to be crushed by Han Fei. The 2 knives in his hands were thrown away, and 2 swallows Huixian slashed back, and the spell patterns on his arms flickered, and the 2 hands turned into 2 supergiant insects that were 100 meters long, like bobbit insects. From a distance, they even looked like 2 dragons coming out of the sea. However, how could this block Han Fei's great path becomes one sword? The 2 fat insect arms exploded in an instant, and then his body was shattered by Han Fei's sword. As for the swallows Huixian, Han Fei hit them with the yin-yang reincarnation knife backhand and sent them flying with one blow. But Han Fei's face didn't look good, because the weirdo actually molted like an insect in front of him when he was almost dead. Also at this moment, the black smoke gathered, and the weirdo appeared, but beside him, an identical figure appeared, which should be a fusion of insects. Then, Han Fei saw an extremely disgusting scene. The monstrous man's mouth suddenly opened wide and he swallowed the sea expansion insect in one gulp. This is really a fucking insect man, Han Fei was shocked. After the weirdo ate the insect man, his strength soared dramatically. As he stretched out his hand and waved, the 2 scimitars returned. When he looked at Han Fei again, Han Fei's heart sank. This sea of insects was completely his territory, and he could have as many clones as he wanted. If he could keep eating like this, how much could he eat? At this moment, the ripples in the void were endless, and the sea of insects was destroyed one after another. The immortal baleful immortal was still blocked by those beetles. Although he advanced again, he couldn't get close. Han Fei took a deep breath. In this case, let's decide the winner. Just when Han Fei was about to make a big move, he suddenly heard the old turtle say, "Wait a minute, that mirror seems to be shining on you." Huh? The old turtle's words made Han Fei's hair stand on end. Is that mirror shining on me? When Han Fei looked back, he saw that the mirror was already facing in his direction. Am I being targeted by something? Suddenly, Han Fei's heart sank and he didn't continue to reveal his trump card. If there was really something staring at him all the time, now was the most unwise time to reveal his trump card. At this moment, the insect man continued to attack, and it was completely different from the person just now. This person's speed was faster and his explosive power was stronger, and his strength had reached more than 300,000 waves. Of course, although he was still not Han Fei's opponent, if he swallowed a insect man later, God knew how strong it would become. Therefore, Han Fei knew that this had to be a quick battle. At this moment, the fierce immortal had just rushed out and cut off its shell, but the power of the yin-yang reincarnation knife was still there. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the sea of insects where the fierce immortal was, and with a thought, the infinity water exploded again. Rumble, the terrifying ripples blew up hundreds of millions of insects here into nothingness, and the fierce immortal broke free from the sea of insects. The person seemed to know what Han Fei was thinking and intended to retreat to the sea of insects. But Han Fei took out the embroidery needle and directly rushed to the altar, regardless of whether the person stayed or left. Seeing this, the insect man saw that Han Fei didn't care about it at all, and all the spells on its body immediately lit up. Its speed soared to the extreme. With a swish, it blocked in front of Han Fei. But Han Fei had already expected this scene, and the embroidery needle in his hand was already ready. With a heaven-buckling gait, the insect man exploded. How could Han Fei feel at ease if the insect man didn't die? Just when the insect man turned into smoke, before the body in the smoke had time to escape, the fierce immortal slashed at him and the yin-yang reincarnation knife arrived. Puff! Puff! At this point, the insect tide stopped, and the insect man was finally annihilated under Han Fei's attack. Chapter 1997. Phew! Han Fei let out a long sigh of relief. This sea of insects was extremely difficult. Not to mention whether this insect man was powerful or not, it was not easy to find this altar. Han Fei didn't dare to think about it. If he didn't have the multisensory instrument, it would take him at least a few days to find this place. During this period, he was devouring poisonous gas almost all the time and suffering the corrosion of the corrosive insect fluid. Furthermore, they had to endure the corrosion of the corrosive insect fluid. If any other king came, even if they could barely reach the altar, they would first be half dead. At that time, if he fought with this insect man again, he would be ranked in the top 30 of the ocean expansion realm. However, after devouring this insect clone, his strength soared to about the top 10. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and killed this guy early. Otherwise, if he devoured this insect man's clone, he would probably be ranked in the top 3 of the ocean expansion realm. At that time, it would be even more difficult to defeat him. Han Fei was speechless. The beginning was so difficult, just for a mirror. What the hell was this mirror? At this moment, the insect man was annihilated, and Han Fei felt that he should have obtained the first treasure of this trip, a mirror. In a place like the altar, Han Fei was very careful when he walked up. The altar was trapezoidal and had a total of 99 steps. In the middle of the steps, there was a river left by a waterfall-like river. Of course, the river was almost dry now. Occasionally, a drop of water could be seen falling from it. When Han Fei came to the bottom of the steps, he was surprised to find that there was a pool under the river. What flowed in this river turned out to be the essence of the earth vein, and it had even accumulated into a pond more than 10 meters wide under the altar. How could Han Fei let it go? The essence of the earth vein was very rare. He once robbed about 30,000 kilograms of it under the earth vein in the Forest of Terror. At that time, Xue Fan should have gotten at least 1,000,000 kilograms, which was how he built the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, a force full of big red trunks. However, at that time, the scope of Xue Fan's layout was 300,000 kilometers, and the essence of the earth vein was used to form the pattern of the earth vein, so it might not be enough. But now Han Fei estimated that this pool was at least 1,000,000 kilograms. Gulp. Han Fei couldn't help but swallow his saliva and couldn't help sighing. No wonder countless people are desperately trying to break into the Imperial Palace. Just this is enough to completely transform a sea expansion expert's earth vein. No matter how poor their earth vein is, with the help of this low-priced essence, its quality will rise to a whole new level. The old tortoise also exclaimed, as expected of the Imperial Palace, "This is too extravagant. I'm afraid the entire bug race forest relies on the endless supply of earth vein essence." Reminded by the old turtle, Han Fei suddenly realized something. Yes, this insect-tide forest was very large, and the essence of the earth vein had created a perfect living environment for them. Therefore, there were so many bugs here that it could drive people crazy. However, Han Fei didn't care about those bugs at this moment. He used the water control technique to absorb a large amount of earth vein essence and stuff it directly into the origin sea. As for how to make arrangements in the future, that was a matter for later. He had to stuff the earth vein essence into the origin sea first. When Han Fei almost dug out all the soil here, Han Fei estimated that there was a total of 1. 12 million kilograms of earth vein essence. This was understandable because the earth vein essence belonged to the entire earth vein and couldn't be stored here all the time. Therefore, the amount of earth vein essence accumulated in this small pool should be the accumulation of thousands of years here. Bada, at this time, Han Fei saw a drop of earth vein essence flowing down from the altar. Han Fei reached out to grab it and stuffed it into his mouth. Although it was something used to shape earth veins, it was extremely nourishing for the soul. Unfortunately, Han Fei didn't have time to wait here. This was the first place he came to after entering the imperial palace, and he had already obtained so much earth vein essence. It was hard to imagine what treasures there would be later. After collecting this earth vein essence, Han Fei felt that even if he opened up a origin sea of 100,000 kilometers, this earth vein essence would be enough. Therefore, Han Fei didn't feel that the danger at the entrance and in the insect-tide forest was very dangerous. After all, it was not beyond his ability. He could also go through the entrance of the black vortex. Therefore, Han Fei directly stepped on the first step in one go. Finding nothing unusual, Han Fei still went up one step and waited. Following Han Xian's warning, he didn't advance rashly. Until the last step, Han Fei didn't encounter any trouble, and in the end, he directly reached the top. Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that not all the altars were mysterious. When Han Fei climbed to the last floor and looked at the bronze mirror, a strange light flashed in his eyes. However, the bronze mirror suddenly faded, and the surrounding world, like a dreamy space, kept changing. The insect-tide forest disappeared. Immediately afterward, Han Fei's eyes lit up. Above his head, there was a flawless mirror, and under his feet, there was also a flawless mirror. Around him, one mirror after another appeared with a swish, and in the mirror, there was one after another of himself. Clatter. Han Fei was dumbfounded. He should have guessed it. How could an altar set up in the imperial palace be a joke? He didn't even have time to take a good look at the bronze mirror. He didn't even have time to see the demon purification pot, and he appeared in this world full of mirrors. Fuck! Han Fei's surprised expression was clearly reflected in the mirror. Because there were mirrors everywhere, Han Fei could see himself from different angles no matter which angle he looked at himself. Gulp! Han Fei swallowed. In all the mirrors he saw, he was swallowing saliva. Han Fei even felt that the person in the mirror seemed to be standing outside. Hey, 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 Han Fei just shouted, but this, hey, came from all the mirrors in all directions, lingering. Hiss! Han Fei's eyes widened. What the hell is this? Why were the reflections in the mirrors able to shout out? Han Fei told himself that there must be a secret here. Since there must be answers or things he needed to find here, he had to try to break this space. Han Fei waved casually and slashed at one of the mirrors, trying to destroy the mirror and see what mysteries there were in this world. However, when Han Fei slashed out casually, he suddenly had a headache, because he saw countless knife lights coming out of the mirror, breaking the mirror, and rushing at him. Son of a bitch. Han Fei didn't dare to hesitate. Although he didn't understand what was going on, he immediately punched to block. In an instant, the sky was full of fist shadows, blasting at the knife lights in all directions. But the next scene made Han Fei's back break out in a cold sweat. The sky full of fist shadows also bombarded out of the mirror. For a moment, all he could see were knife lights and fist shadows. Fuck. Han Fei's current strength was no longer weak. Although he had only used 30% of his strength in that casual strike, with countless 30% stacking on top of each other, it wouldn't be easy for him to withstand it. At this moment, Han Fei had two choices. One was to resist the knife lights and fist shadows, and the other was to reverse time and go back to the moment just now. Han Fei decisively chose to reverse time. After consuming a small amount of chaotic gas, Han Fei successfully returned to the original state. Seeing that there was no ripple in the space, he let out a long sigh of relief. And his reflection in the mirror naturally also breathed a sigh of relief. Han Fei couldn't help but curse, "Why are you so angry? I'm the one being beaten." Why are you so angry? I'm the one being beaten. Why are you so angry? I'm the one being beaten, you. For a moment, the whole space was filled with this voice. Han Fei shut up, thinking, can't I just stop talking? Han Fei suspected that he had to pass such a trial in order to get the bronze mirror. What would be the consequences if he didn't pass this trial? But then Han Fei suddenly thought of something. Can't I reverse time and go back to a moment ago? This should be a way to pass the trial, right? Han Fei was overjoyed. He immediately summoned the chaotic gas, and a blue halo flowed on his body, trying to reverse time and go back to the time before he fell into this space. However, after consuming 10 strands of chaotic gas in a row, Han Fei found that he didn't move at all. Hiss, how is it possible? I can clearly reverse time just now, so theoretically, the Tao of time shouldn't be blocked in this space. Why can't I get out? This was the first time that Han Fei had encountered a situation where he couldn't reverse time. Han Fei immediately wanted to tear the void and jump into the river of time with the golden light. However, the void here couldn't be torn at all, as if he were in a void and couldn't be opened. Motherfucker, he's trapped. Chapter 1998. Fuck, I knew the Imperial Palace was dangerous, but I didn't expect it to be so dangerous. How long has it been? I've already encountered a trap of this level. Han Fei's heart sank. The difficulty of the Imperial Palace was far beyond his imagination. He thought it would be difficult, but he didn't expect it to be so difficult at the beginning. It had been opened for 3 years, and this was only the first day he came in. And this is what you gave me? If it were another king, he might have been killed by now. However, it was useless to complain here now. In this world full of mirrors, the only thing he could do was not to fight. Once he fought, he would be fighting himself. Fortunately, he could reverse time here. Otherwise, he would have been beaten up by a group of people just now. Who would believe it? Now, Han Fei's biggest headache was looking at these mirrors, because when he looked at any mirror, there was not only one person in the mirror, but countless copies of himself. Because a mirror reflected all the scenes it could reflect. The same was true of the mirrors in the mirrors. As a result, wherever Han Fei looked, he saw countless mirrors and countless copies of himself. Fortunately, he had the Gemini divine technique. Han Fei was sure that he couldn't get out in a short time. The first thing he thought of was the Gemini divine technique. Pure darkness could even absorb light, so when Han Fei appeared in the black mist, he looked at the mirror again, but there was nothing in it. Phew! Han Fei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had many means, otherwise, he really didn't know what to do. The white mist was still standing in place, not moving, mainly because he was too lazy to move. Because as soon as he moved, all the copies of himself in the mirror moved with him. This feeling was very weird. Han Fei left the place where he was in the black mist. He didn't look for a way first, but looked at the mirror first. Han Fei walked around one of the mirrors and found that it was a tetrahedron. That was to say, this was a tetrahedron. On the back, left and right of the mirror, there were also mirrors, even above his head and under his feet. Countless mirrors overlapped here. To tell the truth, even though Han Fei was already half a king, it was difficult for him to distinguish the real from the fake, because this mirror had no obvious frame at all. Since the body of black fog couldn't be reflected in the mirror at all, it shouldn't be a problem to destroy it, right? This time, Han Fei only used less than 10% of his strength, so even if there would still be an invisible counterattack, he could easily withstand it with his body alone. However, when Han Fei slapped the mirror, his expression immediately changed. It was as if he had slapped a divine artifact. He couldn't even shake it. Instead, a huge force was generated, causing ripples to appear in the air. Although the mirror could not be shaken, the crazy attacks from all directions did not appear. Therefore, this mirror could only refract power, but it couldn't refract things that it couldn't refract. Han Fei grinned. It's quite hard, huh? Han Fei went up and hammered the mirror with his strongest blow. With the power of the black fog avatar, if Han Fei exerted his full strength, it would be 200,000 waves. However, the Venerable One mirror did not budge at all. Instead, the energy ripples in the void reacted and were actually refracted. Buzz, swish, swish, swish. All of a sudden, countless energy ripples surged. Han Fei had a bad feeling and shouted in a low voice, Gemini Fusion. After Gemini Fusion, the first thing Han Fei did was to use the time reversal technique. Otherwise, when all the ripples vibrated, he would be hit by the shock waves caused by the body of Black Fog's full strength, which was even more terrifying than Han Fei's previous punches and knives. When the time was reversed, Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief again. This time, he didn't plan to make a move. He finally realized that this place was not a place that could be broken by force at all. It seemed that in this space, this mirror was invincible and could not be broken by humans at all. Using the Gemini Divine technique again, Han Fei's body of black fog groped his way out. He was trying to find a way out. Because there were mirror images everywhere, it was really a little difficult to distinguish the route. Anyway, after groping for a long time, not only did Han Fei not find the way, but he couldn't even find the way back. Everywhere he looked was empty. He had bumped into the mirror hundreds of times. Fortunately, he got used to bumping into it. Han Fei also learned to be smart. The body of black fog directly turned into a black fog and walked around the mirror. Finally, on the next day, Han Fei's attempt to find the body of white fog failed. However, a failure was a failure. Now the two were closely connected and they just needed to know each other's existence. If it didn't work, he would use Gemini Fusion and be together. Han Fei naturally wouldn't be very nervous. Han Fei was sure that a day had passed, so he immediately took out the nautical panorama, and with a thought, he wanted the nautical panorama to find a way out for him. As a result, the nautical panorama began to spin crazily, but the pointer was moving in a circular motion. Soon, it pointed to the place it could point to, as if it had malfunctioned. Han Fei thought to himself, so, the way out is actually inside the mirror? Han Fei was sure that the nautical panorama wouldn't be affected by the mirror and couldn't choose a direction, so when it moved, it meant that it knew how to get out, and the way was inside the mirror. Han Fei thought to himself that this was nonsense. He could probably guess that he had fallen into the world of the bronze mirror. If he wanted to get out, he could only get out through the mirror. But the problem was, how could he get out? Therefore, Han Fei's second point was to silently say, point to the treasure or secret place here. But the result was the same as before. He still didn't know the correct direction and spun randomly. Huh? The old turtle said, well, why do I have a feeling? Are you sure that this is your original body? Hearing this, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat and he couldn't help but respond, what do you mean? The old turtle said, there are countless mirrors here, and the you in the mirror can attack you physically. So, is the you in the mirror real or fake? Han Fei's eyes widened. The idea put forward by the old turtle was too terrifying. If what the old turtle said was true, then it was really hard to say whether he was himself or not. But Han Fei thought for a while. If he could find the body of white mist instead of in the mirror, did it mean that he was real? With a thought in his mind, the nautical panorama had already turned. Hey, hey, hey! I didn't ask you to turn. Han Fei just made a mistake and had this idea. However, he didn't know where he had gone. Although he wasn't far away from the body of white fog, he still couldn't sense the presence of the white fog. Although he was not far from the body of white mist, under the illumination of so many mirrors, it would be really difficult for him to find the body of white mist in just a few seconds. Besides, to see if he was real, he could just ask the nautical panorama to point at him. Unfortunately, the 3 chances today had been used up in this short period of time, so Han Fei had no other choice. Immediately, he went back with Gemini as one. The third day. As soon as the time passed, Han Fei took out the nautical panorama. This time, Han Fei took it out directly. He thought to himself, if the me in the mirror is real, is their nautical panorama also real? Then Han Fei asked, where is my real body? But this time, something creepy happened. The nautical panorama continued to spin randomly and it seemed that his real body could be seen everywhere. Son of a bitch. Han Fei couldn't help cursing secretly. Is the nautical panorama broken? What the hell is going on? If all the people in the mirror are my real body, then what am I? But Han Fei didn't panic. He immediately asked again, where is my only real body? However, the result was still the same. It seemed that all the people here were his only real body. Suddenly, Han Fei activated the Gemini divine technique again. Han Fei asked where his body of black mist was, and the result was the same. The nautical panorama was still spinning randomly. Now even Han Fei himself began to doubt whether he was real or not. This space made him doubt himself. Plop. Han Fei sat on the ground and leaned his back against the mirror. The body of black mist and the body of white mist were facing each other. The body of black mist looked at the body of white mist and was speechless. If he took it out to fight, it would be so scary that the enemy wouldn't know where his real body was, because even he didn't know where his real body was. And the body of white mist and the body of black mist were both aimlessly glancing at the mirrors around them, looking at themselves in the mirror, and themselves in the mirror were also looking at themselves. Huh? But suddenly, the body of black mist and the body of white mist exclaimed almost at the same time. At that moment, Han Fei couldn't help but think of his jasper stone bridge. He remembered standing on the top of the bridge and looking down at the bridge. At that time, he was also looking at another version of himself that didn't really exist. For some reason, this feeling suddenly appeared just now. Is this mirror space related to the Great Way?